Episode 27 of Far Kingdoms. We're back again with a very special guest, AK.
AK.
Our new character, playing Kenji, the monk.
Hello.
The psychopath. Legend.
Man, 2 sessions and you're already calling him a psychopath.
He is! He said so himself.
He beat up a bunch of guys in a
tavern because a voice told him so. That's some
That doesn't make him a
schizophrenic shit.
psychopath.
Yes, it does.
It makes him a good follower.
If you
know,
met someone
good
in real
soldier.
life and he told you a story about, oh, I heard voices in my head that told me to beat up everyone in this bar I was in, you'd think he was crazy, right?
But he's not beating me up, right?
Oh my god, you're
mean,
insane.
that's-
You're insane too.
That's fair enough. But no, I was trying to flavor it as the brand, the EG behind the brand, sort of telling me what to do in my head. But I think I missed the scope of it per se. But yeah,
No, I got you. Kevin thinks you're insane, but I got you.
Hey,
I could be
I'm
insane.
just taking it as I hear it, okay? And what I'm hearing is insanity from the both of you.
That's fair enough. What should we do? Should we do the fast recap first, and then should we do the mega recap afterwards?
Yes, sure.
Alright, we'll do... Okay, cool. So this session, we went down back into the mines. We woke up with Magni after a few visions from Snow and Tokul. Do you still have any idea what that's about? Like, obviously it goes back to Black Hole Stronghold or whatever, but do you have any like inkling of what that might be about to happen?
Talking to me?
I'm talking to you.
Well, at the end of this session, we came upon Dawnhelm, and you described that there were people being webbed up. So I think we're about to meet what spoke to us pretty soon, if not very soon.
Okay, and that's a fair assumption based on logic, and I would not disagree with you in that aspect. Okay. Actually, AK,
yeah.
from your first encounter with our party, did you think they're all crazy people? I think they're kind of crazy people, to be honest.
Well, I thought Snow was pretty level-headed, being the party leader, and just his just general vibe, I guess, and the way his demeanor, how he was role-played by Kevin. I felt like Snow was the most level-headed and kind of the one that reins everyone in. But I feel like Maple is also decently level-headed, thinks logically. Storm can be a bit chaotic at times, but I think it very much fits his character, and he role-plays it very well. Who else am I missing? Ravenar.
Mhm.
Ravenar was also, I guess his roleplay stems from like the Korg like stereotype, and that's pretty cool too. But no, I don't think anyone's like insane per se or psychotic. I think there is a bit of chaotic tendency, but especially with the minecart incident yesterday, which you'll get to. But yeah, I
Okay,
don't
so
think anyone's
what about
crazy
Tokul?
per se. Did I miss
What about
anyone?
Tokul? You missed Tokul.
Tokul. Ah, yeah, of course,
Oh.
Tokul. Yeah, no, Tokul, I think there's some moments where I've seen he's a bit, I guess, impulsive, but I've been informed by Matt that that's part of the party thing. But also as a paladin, he has very strong sense of, like, protectorship. Like, he wants to protect people that are in danger and stuff like that. So I think it also fits his character. I think in any sense where something impulsive occurs, it has also far to me, what I've seen, it's matched the character roleplay.
Oh, you hear that, Kevin? He's saying we're good at roleplay.
Yeah,
He's saying you
it's
guys are
a
good at roleplay.
It's a good assessment from only 2 sessions. I would have thought that first impressions would have been quite deceiving.
I mean, you guys could still turn up to be like massive clowns, clown circus. So, I mean, we'll see what happens, I guess.
We'll see.
After that, Magni says to you guys, well, I'm gonna go take care of the Gith. You want to deal with the drow, you guys deal with the drow. I'm gonna give you this. He gives you a tablet with special directions to the switch you guys have to pull in order to release the drawbridge to get into the Citadel. And he also gives Kenji his old braces of defense. And this kind of goes back to... I kind of did AK dirty here, because I forgot he had no magic items on him. Like, most when people start we usually allocate like X amount of magic items, and I completely forgot to do that. So he was coming in naked. Because you're still kind of naked, to be honest. Like right now, you have like an extra sunblade and the braces, but
Yeah.
But didn't Storm and Ryan go like 20 sessions without having a magic item?
they say that, but they had magic items.
Okay.
They did. They got shit. Did you feel like especially underpowered amongst these guys?
Well, in the combat, which you'll also get to in a second, jumping ahead here. In the
Yeah.
combat, I feel like obviously that was my first combat in a while. I think it actually helped that I didn't have all that many magical items, just because it probably would have cluttered my screen and in my head as well. I opened up to what I could do and what my opportunities were in combat. So the first round, I guess, or my first turn, was just unarmed strikes and then flurry of blows. I completely forgot to even apply any special effects from my open hand technique and stuff like that. But slowly, as I progressed, I learned like, okay, I can stunning strikes, I can make them prone, or I can throw them 15 feet, so stuff like that. So I didn't feel like I was super underpowered. I just feel like I need to utilize my skills a bit better.
Honestly, I think you did really well. What was the gap between this campaign and your last one?
Gap as in time, or
Like when's the last time you played?
last time I played, pre-COVID. So
Oh,
I guess. Well, actually, no. It was sort of just the beginning, or like I'd say the first third of COVID.
so that's
So
what?
almost a year ago.
Yeah, almost a year ago.
Damn.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you did really well in that aspect. I honestly thought you were, it was going to take a lot longer for you to get back into the groove, especially since you jumped how many levels?
From 3 to 10.
Yeah, that's a massive gap.
I-
That's a lot of shit you have to learn.
Did my homework. Worry not.
Yeah, I am pleasantly surprised. Kevin,
Yeah.
do you want to tell AK what your thoughts on the monk class are?
I think monk's shit.
Fair enough. Why'd you say that?
Well, actually, I don't think it's shit. I think it's not fun to play.
Okay.
Because, yes, monk can do some crazy shit, but at the cost of the crazy shit, you have really, like, low DCs. Say if you're a stunning strike, right? That's pretty strong. But it's a 15 DC. Most of the time, I feel like you don't get that often.
Okay.
So that's the trade-off, right? And when you're a player, you want to hit. You want to make those rolls. You want to roll high. And when you're rolling high as a monk, it's great. But when you're not, it's shit.
As we saw yesterday.
I mean, I guess that applies to every class, but I feel like monk especially, I get the dumps. I get down in the dumps when I don't roll high as a monk, you know?
It's the
it's your
high
least
highs and the
favorite
low
class.
lows. Yeah.
I don't know. I have always thought monks were really good. Like I think they're really good at controlling things. I don't think the DC thing is honestly that big of an issue, because if we're going back to
well,
like
I think you're saying that because based off of last session, but I think if you stretch it over the course of the campaign, he's going to miss that more than he's hitting that. Unless he's really lucky.
Statistically speaking, like, yeah, I'm looking at it now. I've got, so open hand technique. I can either throw them or make them prone. They've got to make dex or strength saving throws for those. That's also DC 15. Stunning strikes, DC 15. So far everything is like statistically less likely to hit, I suppose. But
Yeah, and especially with, we're like level 10 now, and we're fighting bigger and badder creatures, they're going to have higher stats. Of course, some of them aren't going to be, aren't going to have as high, well, what's the DC? Wisdom? Is it wisdom saving throw for that? Or
for which one? Stunning strike.
Stunning strike.
For Stunning Strike, yeah.
It's a constitution.
Yeah, well, yeah, especially Constitution, because a lot of big baddies have high Constitution.
I don't agree. I think that magic classes also have, like, their DCs are also like 15, 16. It's like the same thing, except it's usually wisdom saves. And monsters are usually pretty good at wisdom saves if they're intelligent. It really depends on what you're versing. So, like,
I think
big
the difference
boys obviously
with
have
magic classes,
more
you have a
con.
lot more choices in terms of spells and things like that. So, but monk, you only have like stunning strike and a couple other things. So your arsenal is pretty limited, and you're forced to rely on those things, which have a low probability of getting a hit. You know what I mean?
I guess
Which
that's
is why,
fair
which
enough.
is why I think why it's exacerbated. That feeling of like missing sucks is exacerbated by playing a monk than with other classes.
I feel like your rogue is up there too.
Yeah.
I think it's the high risk, high reward thing, right? But no, I will say, like during combat yesterday, seeing some of the guys cast like different sort of spells and like the utility that they could provide, it made me think in my head like, huh, I wish I had some spells of that sort too. But
Yeah, we can arrange that.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
Range is garbage.
I didn't say arrange it. We can arrange that. I mean, yeah, like if you ever feel like you don't like playing monk anymore, you can just let us know, and then we'll figure something out. It's happened with other characters. Like Kevin Snow used to be a fighter. He used to be a samurai fighter. He fucking he hated
Fighters are
that.
boring. They're boring. That's probably why Aiden changed his class as well, because he probably doesn't like. He probably doesn't want to just be good at combat. He wants to be good at other things too.
Yeah. So the pitfall with fighters is that their social interaction skills are usually quite lacking, whereas people like mages, they have so many other options. Like they can use their magic to interact with the world outside of combat.
Yeah.
But fighters really don't have that opportunity, which is why most people tend to stray away from the martial archetypes like barbarian and stuff.
Right.
But you know, it's really up to the player. Like if you're not feeling monk, you don't have to be a monk. We can figure it out.
Yeah, I'm still well, I'm halfway through to the max level, so we'll see how we go.
Yeah. Like I'm just saying, if you ever get a stunning strike on like a big bad guy, they're fucked. They're absolutely fucked.
It's a whole round.
Like they're dead. Yeah. They're dead. Yeah. It's a whole round where you get the chance to also reapply stunning strike.
Yep. And advantage.
Yeah, this is why legendary creatures have legendary resistances, so they can just say no to most of that shit. But you know, like if it's a big guy that's not the boss, well, they're probably fucked. Okay. Anyway, Magnus sends you off, and you guys go on an adventure through the winding tunnels of the Underdark. I think I did an average job at describing the winding caves, the small crawl holes, and the gigantic caverns, and the random footprints and shit. What did you guys think of that?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I think.
I
Oh no, sorry. You go.
Go ahead.
Okay. I think that it can be particularly difficult to describe such a monotonous setting. Like I think you did well with changing it up in terms of, so there was the gnome area with like the supposedly acidic pools where you could smell acrid smells. So you described things in terms of different senses as well. So that was good. And there was also a bit of a change of scenery. So there was the gnome hideout, and then you had the minecart and the tunnel leading down, and then you had the mushroom area. But again, it's all in the Underdark. It's very hard to describe because there's no like lustrous nature. There's no like light per se. There's all these sort of creatures and stuff like that you have to rely on to add flavor, I suppose, to environments. But I think he did okay with not just relying on sight and visuals. But yeah, again, it's dark and it's caves. There's only so much variance it can have.
Yeah, and I think those parts in between the major parts, like the gnome home and the mushroom cavern, were the important parts, and everything in between that everything in between those major areas didn't matter as much.
Okay, but
So you could probably get away
still
with-
think it could be done better, obviously.
Yeah,
Right.
but yeah, I'm saying there's you shouldn't put as much importance to the places that we just pass through and walk through and never, give it a second thought again, rather than the major areas like the mushroom caves. I got a pretty good sense of the mushroom caves.
Okay, all right. So what I want to go for with the Underdark setting is that it's very alien, and that obviously it's going to be dark a lot of the time. It's just pitch blackness, but obviously there's going to be rooms where it's just like all this fluorescent flora and like this strange like alien wildlife that's just so foreign to you guys that you've never seen shit like this before. And obviously there's still time to communicate that, but it's, I don't know, it's difficult for me to also picture that in my head because I'm not particularly familiar with the Underdark setting. This is also my first time foraying into that, so I don't know. I guess it might improve as the time goes on, but it depends on how long you guys stay down here.
I think everyone's perception of it right now is it's just a cave.
Yeah, I would
And
say
that's
Like
the problem. Yeah, that's
if
the
you
problem.
try to move away from that perception of it just being a cave, then maybe you'd have more success in conveying the more alien feel.
Yeah, that's fair enough because I don't know. I personally just feel a little more restrained by the everything being confined within like a tunnel. Like anything with a roof, it's like it's either a big cavern or a small cavern or a tunnel or a small tunnel. It's like I don't know. There's not too much variety here that I can really fly with, but there might be some different stuff down the road. Anyway, that's all I wanted to ask. What happened after you guys left?
We left the beach. Are you saying we left the beach or we left
off the beach?
Yeah,
It was
so we all gathered
minecart?
up. Yeah, we all gathered up and we started heading towards the drow side of the city. And we go through some tunnels, and I think was it that tunnel where we saw like claw marks or drag marks going into a crevice or something? Or was that after?
that was
a
after.
little afterwards.
That was
Yeah.
after. Okay, so we reached this cavern and we start hearing a moaning of a woman saying, "Help me, help me." And we reached this cavern. We try to sneak in, but Tokel fails the sneak roll.
Obviously.
Which I think the ruling on that is a bit inconsistent because I know in the past we've done group stealth checks, but now you're saying it's the lowest denominator who rolls it.
I think in this
What's the deal with
specific
that?
scenario, you guys are walking in a specific lineup where Tokel is always in front. And from that, I said that, well, since Tokel's the first one in, he's probably going to be the one who rolls. If you guys were going in together in a huddled group, I would probably put it back down to the group check, but I don't know, that's just my thought process at that time.
Because I did ask, like, what if Tokel was in the middle of the group, would it be a
He
group
wasn't.
check then? And then you said it wasn't. So,
Oh, did you ask that?
yes, I did ask that.
I don't remember. I don't recall that. So maybe I missed that, and in that case, I apologize. But yeah, I don't know. I think now I might actually be leaning more towards the lowest denominator because the group's only as stealthy as its least stealthiest person, right?
I think that makes sense.
And if you want to go stealth something, it'd probably be better to send your stealthiest guy first to scout it out and then come back. But yeah, I think that's where I'm leaning more towards these days. What do you think about that, Kevin?
Yeah, sure. I mean, as long as it's consistent from now on and it doesn't just change, I'm fine with it.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, he fucks up the roll. And you guys just are like, alright, fuck it, lights back on. Let's just walk into this room. And you walk into a room with a alchemical table with a bunch of instruments on it. It's got some bubbling pools of acid. It's got a few beakers full of random liquids that are sizzling and boiling. On one of the eastern sides, there's a a group of minecarts placed on this rail that goes down, deep down into the mines of the caves. And on the right side, there's this cage that is wrapped around in these iron chains. And there's this figure with an iron mask cloaked in this black hood that is kind of kind of screaming, "Help me!" No, not screaming, but it's kind of like shouting, "Help me!" in this female voice. And what happens after that?
Well, I think before anyone has a chance to do anything, Storm decides to fuck with one of the minecarts.
Yep.
I think the one with the silver ore in it. As
Yep.
soon as he puts his hands on it, he's suddenly stuck on there like there's super glue or something. And then this tongue wraps around him and suddenly he goes sailing into the tunnel. So me, being Snow and Tokel, we decide, okay, we're going to go after him. So Snow jumps into the empty minecart and Tokel starts pushing. And then it turns out that's a mimic too. So we get trapped and we go sailing down the tunnel. And then Ravenar, I think just Ravenar, throws a rock at the other minecart, which is also a mimic. So that goes sailing down. But Ravenar doesn't grab on. He decides to fly down the tunnel. And the other two, Kenji and Maple, decide to inspect the cage nonchalantly, despite everything going on.
I forget that Ravenar has a flying speed of 50 feet. He is fucking fast. I forget Aarakocras are terribly fast, and I now remember why most campaigns ban them from being playable races at the start. Those dudes are strong. But yeah, you guys go sailing down those minecarts. Lewis mentioned that this is the first time I've ever introduced mimics into this campaign. So that was a really fun trap to spring on those guys. And they go sailing down. They end up jumping off, saving themselves. And they dodge the other minecart and they come back. But AK, you decide to inspect the woman/thing.
Yes.
Was it just out of like plain curiosity, or like what was the thought process?
Well, alright, so my thought process was, alright, these guys are going down. They've got Ravenar going down, and I know he's pretty damn fast, right, from what he's described. And I have faith that the guys are, well, stat beastie enough that they can sort of get out of this, and if they don't, well, that's a miscall from me. I should have gone to help. But at the same time, I knew that if I did go to help, we'd probably be missing out on something here in this Gnome Hideout, which we didn't know was a Gnome Hideout at this point. I was also, part of it was the curiosity of this creature. I think the party in general, like once we recovered and came back up, was a bit more hostile towards it. And Lewis's, I guess his reasoning behind that was solid. It was sound. It was how did this thing learn to scream and like help from like this woman's voice? Like, how did it do that? And how has it survived here for so long? And why is it in a cage? But my initial instinct was that, from that insight check that I made, this thing it's hard to tell what its intent is, but it seemed to me as such that it wasn't super malicious. Plus it was sort of like shirking away from whoever went near it, so I had a feeling that it might not be able to injure us, per se. Plus there were 6 of us there eventually. But yeah, I didn't want to leave that out just in case that thing was capable of coming down and chasing after us. That could have been a very dangerous pincer situation there. So I had faith in the party that was already going down the tunnel, and I thought maybe Maple and I could, check this out and see what sort of danger it posed to us.
That's fair enough. You hear that, Snow? He has faith in you guys. He's known you guys for like half a day. He has faith in you. That's rare.
Yes, unwise.
Yeah, it turns out you were sort of correct. It didn't really have any malicious intent. It was just kind of excited to be released from its cages, but it did shirk away from any kind of physical contact. And before you guys get to figure out what's under the mask, the deep gnome comes back, who is now nicknamed No, and just tells you guys to fuck right off. Like, get out of my home. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Get out. And that's kind of where it ended, to be honest. Like, you guys disarm the trap. He tells you to stop fucking around with the shit, and you guys are like, oh, alright, I guess we're leaving. I'd say that, honestly, like, logically, it's a reasonable response, but fantasy-wise, I would have thought you guys would have stayed to fuck around with him just a little longer. I don't know. What do you guys think of that?
I was super curious about what that creature was, but I also had a fear that, in my head canon anyway, that mask was sort of preventing it from, doing anything super crazy. So when we were about to take off that mask, or we tried, it was a big risky maneuver. That being said, I was the one that kind of freed it. My intention was maybe to befriend it at the time, and I don't know, see where that went from there. But it is kind of fair that when someone, like, logically speaking, as you said, when you break into someone's home and they're like, get out, you're like, yeah, that's fair. I did kind of like fuck with this shit. If this is his pet, I kind of like broke his cage and whatnot. But yeah, I think the logical reasoning behind leaving this dude's home was very fair. So we're like, okay, let's get out of here. What do you think, Kevin?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. All right. They leave like a few parting words, right? They tell they tell them some words in Draconic, which I don't know might come back. Do you guys think there has any potential to come back and bite you guys in the ass, or it's just like, it's there?
Oh, that gnome guy's got it under control. He seems to have a tight lid on it. I'll have faith in that guy that I just met.
I really want to know what that creature was, just out of curiosity. But if it has some impact in the future of the campaign, then don't tell us. But if not,
I'm
then
sure
reveal.
I'm sure it'll come back later if Albert really wants it to come back.
Yeah, if you guys are that interested, it might. So who knows?
Yeah, I'm super curious.
Yeah, you guys continue on back into the winding caves, whatnot, and you come across a bunch of little carnivorous bipedal creatures with big old toothy mouths that are biting away at this large mushroom man who has recently died, not recently died, who was protecting this small mushroom man. And you guys decide, out of the goodness of your adventuring hearts, to save the child. Do you think that cliche is being overused, Kevin?
Yes, I do.
Do you think it'll work every time from now on anyway?
What do you mean work? Like work in our favor?
No, as in like if you guys see an abandoned child on the road, you're always gonna go save it.
Yes, it's gonna work every time. It's going to work every time.
Your hearts are just too soft. I
Hey,
mean, that thing could have killed you guys. You don't know.
I honestly
But the-
wanted to roleplay that part a bit better. I think I just didn't get the chance to because there's a bit of everything going on at the same time. Everyone wanted to speak, but if I had the chance, I wanted to roleplay it as like I wanted to save this orphan child as an orphan child myself. And like
sometimes sometimes you have to force your way in if you want to have a chance to roleplay. Otherwise, people are just going to fill the gaps fairly quickly.
Yeah.
Which is something I say often on the podcast, is being proactive and sometimes forcibly so is the best way to go if you want to get some roleplay in there.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, it's not always the best choice to wait for people to stop talking, because sometimes they won't.
They won't. Yeah, we got some big mouths in the group. They sometimes when they start, they just don't stop, and eventually moments pass. So yeah, if you feel like you want to say something, just feel free to barge in.
Yeah.
as
Right.
well.
Fair enough.
No one's too. What's the word? Ass about that. No one's bothered by that.
I did have that issue in the last campaign I played. We were all except one and the DM were new to this. And one of the rogues that was playing just had the biggest mouth that wouldn't stop. She just ran her mouth every chance she could, and pretty much no one else could get a say
Ooh.
besides when she stopped speaking, which was rarely.
This is an inter-campaign bomb.
Yeah.
Inter-campaign bomb.
Wow,
You hear
that's
that,
the
Albert?
first one.
Yeah,
So my first bomb, I suppose it is.
we're spanning time and space now.
Yeah, she was very audible with what she wanted to do, and what she was constantly asking the DM what she could and can't do. And during roleplay moments, it was very disruptive, and no one could really say anything like, I want to roleplay this, I want to do this.
So she was basically what do you call it? She was like smothering everyone
Yes,
with her
it's a good word, smothering.
alertness. Yeah. Okay. Well, how about you? How was your last campaign? Tell us more about it. Is it similar to what we had?
It
We have
is
now, or
much smaller in scope. I think the DM that we ran with, he was a good DM, but honestly, I would say Albert is a better DM. Matt, if you're listening to this,
ooh,
apologies. Not Matt from our group, different Matt. But the scope was a lot smaller. He ran through a session 0, which was just a one shot with us first. Everyone was cool with it, so went and started a campaign. The campaign was a mix of homebrew and source adventure. So I don't remember particularly which source book he picked from, but he picked an adventure and added some homebrew stuff to it. I think we ran it for I want to say like 4 sessions or something like that. So pretty short. We eventually ran into commitment issues from certain members of the party.
Ooh, another bomb. Another bomb.
Yeah, he just keeps coming. Damn.
B-24 bomber here. Damn.
He it was hard to get it to work because people were just like, I can't commit, so fair enough. You got stuff to do in real life. What can you do?
Yeah.
But you want to play.
Yeah,
You
we
wanna play,
really
right?
wanted to play. Yeah, so
Yeah.
we had one veteran player and one like veteran-ish DM, but yeah, we all really wanted to play, but the one guy just messed it up. Anyway, the campaign ran pretty
Wow.
smoothly. It was a similar vibe to what we've got going on now. Less combat per se, more bit more roleplay, but that was when we were all pretty new to D&D, so I actually found it kind of hard to roleplay. Less out of like shyness and more that like I don't really know what to say here. But I feel like with you guys it just came a lot more naturally. Or maybe it's because I had that first experience. Yeah, so not super combat-y, more chances to roleplay. But I feel like the DM's NPCs were very standoffish, so they were all very like thinking that we were up to no good for no apparent reason, in a way. Yeah.
Interesting. So you said that you only had 4 sessions of that?
Yeah.
So you didn't play very long.
Didn't play super long. Yeah, there was probably four or so sessions of that. But my D&D experience just comes from watching it mostly, I would say.
Yeah, I saw last session you like whipped out a book. So do you actually have the books on hand?
I've
with
got
you?
the player's handbook on hand. I do. Here's the thing with buying all the other books. I feel like as soon as I buy one, I'm just gonna buy the lot. I have a thing where starting a new hobby for me, it's like I just go hard,
Yeah.
especially with spending. Like I kind of don't want to buy all this stuff just yet. There is a lot of content as well, but no, I do have the player handbook on me. I like to reference it every now and then, but I thought I had done enough research into my attacks and stuff like that before, and just how I read it was attack, bonus action, flurry of blows, and then attack, bonus action, blah blah, and you continue. But apparently that was not the case.
Yeah, I think the way they word it, they assume that you know that all your attacks are encompassed by that one attack action.
Yeah.
Which I can see as being a little confusing. And I think that the jump to level 10 was not helping at all because there's, you get stronger and you get more stuff to do.
Yeah.
The higher levels you go.
Yeah. I think by
you got it right. You understand it now, right?
Yeah, by the end of that combat, I think I must have had maybe 4 or 5 turns. I slowly opened up, like, well, in my head anyway, it opened up to make me realize what I can and can't do, and what sort of things I can do on each turn. But yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's that's interesting. You said you only had like 4 sessions and you were already level 4 by the end of it.
Yeah, I think the
alright.
DM wanted to speed us up a bit, but yeah, we were level 4.
Damn, that's honestly really fast, I think.
It was milestone based as well, so we sort of went through a couple different combats. I think we only actually went through like 3 combats, but they were like relatively short. One of the biggest ones we came across was a necromancer that had revived or was controlling an undead beholder, something like that. I honestly felt like at the level we were at, we really struggled with that fight.
Wait, you took on an undead wait, how many players were there?
4. Yeah, 4.
4 level 4s versus an undead beholder.
Yep.
Man, you guys got the short end of the stick. Damn.
He described
that
it to
guy had a
us.
lot of faith
Yeah,
in your combat ability.
He described it to us as it is a lot less powerful than a beholder, but it still did all the same things a beholder could do. So
Yeah, that is true.
I don't know. Yeah, that was interesting.
I think canonically the main difference between an undead beholder and a null beholder really isn't their physical attributes. It's the way they act. It's their intelligence. So normal beholders are usually very paranoid. They're super paranoid. All they do is lay traps on traps on traps on traps. Like,
Yeah.
They're scared of everything. Like even other beholders.
Yeah.
And an undead one they'll just fight you until the death.
Yeah.
So it's a weird choice. I mean, I've obviously made terrible choices for early level characters. I think I threw a level 5 mage at a group of level one character.
That was like the second session.
I threw a fireball at level 1 character.
It hit all three of us, and we were all on like single-digit health.
Ooh, ouch. Yeah.
But it was spicy, right? That was a good combat. That was a good time. Well, I guess we'll get into that a bit later. But yeah. What happened? Right. You guys saved little mushroom man, and Snow begrudgingly decides that, all right, we're saving this little guy. We'll take him home. It'll be a short, drop off, little detour.
Yeah, 20-minute adventure, in and out.
In and out, and obviously it didn't really pan out to be that way. You guys go to the mushroom place. It's these gigantic mushroom stalk, like a little mushroom farm, where these myconids are being attacked by these things called the Saurusworn, which monsters native to the Shadowfell, the Shadow Plane, and they have encroached into the Underdark, and they're attacking these myconids. And you guys barge in, you guys start attacking them, and you guys have your first taste of combat in a little while. We saw more of Ravenar's kit. He's pretty damn strong. Honestly, I think MVP for me was probably like Maple, right? Like he just like banished one like straight up. He just sent it to the Shadow Realm, and like I was literally gone the whole combat.
I'd have to say that it's tied between Ravenar and Maple. Ravenar did a lot of damage with his Spirit Guardians and just damage in general.
I think if we're talking damage, I think Storm actually did the most with his knives, because that shit does so much damage.
Yeah, he did 70-something damage at one point, I think.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy.
Drop some bears and then summon some knives.
Yeah, some bear nukes. I think like that was very creative. I'd never heard of anyone doing
I've
a
never
summon.
heard of that either until that point.
And he wants to change characters. Hey, what's the matter with you, Storm? What's the matter with you?
Well, people get sick of their characters. Kevin, are you not getting tired of the old the old routine? I shoot and then I hide. I shoot and then I hide.
Well, I can't hide anymore, so I can't even do that. So
it's just I shoot.
Yeah, I think the difference is between Fighter Snow and Rogue Snow is that Rogue Snow can do a lot more stuff outside of combat, which I think helps balance it out. But yeah, Snow is definitely not a heavyweight hitter when it comes to combat, especially with my luck with the dice rolls. I tend to either roll really high or roll really low, and never anything in between. And most of the time I roll low because my dice are shit.
Yeah, the cursed dice.
I don't know how we could change that without changing class or something like that. And I think it just comes down to, hey, martial classes get screwed again because that's the way D&D was designed.
I guess.
I would like to hide. I mean, that was like the only thing I had other than my bow shooter
feature.
Yeah,
I know.
And my bow outclasses my sword only just. They're almost the same power level, but only just. So I don't know, if you have something up your sleeve, I would appreciate you letting me know.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to talk about that later on. Yeah,
I have a question actually.
Yeah.
So Snow is a rogue fighter, is that right?
No, he's a rogue. He's a full rogue. He's not multi-class in any way. But he used to be a fighter.
I see. So what's, in terms of like combat and how you'd enjoy that, what's stopping you from like going into melee range and using that sword?
But the bow's better. The bow's just flat out better.
So is it just more like a meta thing, or like you just don't want to fudge on like damage?
It's a meta thing, definitely. I want to do as much damage as I can, even if it's like one more point of damage.
Yeah.
I'm doing it because I don't do enough damage as it is with my bow, right? Because I don't even hit half the time. I got some good damage in at the start, and then I missed like 2 or 3 shots, and that's it. That's all Snow does.
I see. Okay.
That's all he can do.
No,
even with sneak attack.
Yeah, 100% agree with the min-maxing thing. Like, I don't like to, especially in a role-playing game, I'd like to think, it's the flavor of the character as to what they choose to do. But in terms of playing a game, min-maxing is always something that's at the forefront of my mind. It's like how, just with the thing with healing, I used wholeness of body because I knew that I could heal myself instead of relying on someone else to heal. Like I think that the healing from cleric or from a bard is a lot more useful and has more applications when I can just self heal. So when Storm asks like, oh, who needs healing, I was, nah, I can heal myself.
I would love to play more in character, especially in combat. But for me, playing that way would mean that I would suffer mechanically.
Yeah.
As a rogue, like my effectiveness goes down if I try to do it that way. So, and I think unfortunately, unless you have like the mechanics or something that encourage a certain way of playing and reward a player for playing in a certain way, for me, being the type of player I am, it's not fun for me to do that and put myself at a disadvantage.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, that's fair enough, but that's just kind of how 5th edition works, you know. So yeah, we'll have to. I guess we might have a little talk about that later on. Do you think there's a overall imbalance in like party strength, or do you think everyone's, you know, there's a few people who are stronger, but do you think everyone's kind of on the same-ish level?
No, it's not the case at all.
No.
Give us a power ranking.
Okay, so Snow's definitely bottom feeder or near the bottom.
Ooh.
Then I'd say top 5. Wait, there's 5 players. There's 6, right? Okay, top 5.
Please.
Top 5 would probably. I'm not sure how effective Kenji is. Like, I could be proven wrong with how monks are. I'd say Kenji is in the bottom half for now.
Yeah,
just due to my bias. I'd say probably not second to last, but maybe third to last. Storm kind of fluctuates between the top half and the bottom half, depending on how he uses his spells and stuff. I think this, basing it purely off this combat, I'd say he'd be in the top half, like lower top half. Ravenar would be like second to top. Maple would probably be top, depending on what he uses, or fluctuate, up and down the top half, but never like the bottom half. He'll never go down the bottom half. And I think Tokel can be pretty strong, but a lot of the time he's using his utility to help other players. So I think in his battle potential, if he just like killed stuff, he'd probably definitely be near the top. But right now his effectiveness based on his playstyle puts him like on the lower half, if that makes any sense. Did I miss anyone? I got everyone?
No, that is everybody. And that you say that the disparity is big enough to say that no, they're not on the same level?
If Snow was to 1v1 any of them, I'd probably lose. 100%. Is much more likely that Snow would lose.
What if you got the first sneak attack? You got the
Wouldn't
advantage.
Wouldn't matter because I wouldn't get sneak attack again because I can't hide every turn, and I don't have allies. I don't have allies helping me get sneak attack either. So effectively, I'm just using weapon damage, which is basically pea shooter value right now.
I think. Wait, do you agree with that tier list, AK?
Well, based on the current combat, yeah, I suppose so. Well, I'm seeing a trend, right? So the martial classes getting dicked. That's one trend. The other trend is that with the classes that have like different spells and like utility and stuff like that, they have the potential to go up and down, right? Like they can be super effective, or they can like use their spells and their abilities in a more utility based sense, but their combat effectiveness goes down. But I think that's the huge difference in the disparity between like a class that has spells and utility compared to just a martial class, where the martial class must roll well to do what they need to do, but the other classes can use their utility and they don't need to roll super well. But in the point where they do roll well and they do use those spells for combat, their effectiveness skyrockets, like combat effectiveness, I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually agree with that. Like, Maple was really correct there in using the banishment spell to just lock out one of the 4 dangerous guys, because the lonely guy he would have fucked up the backline a lot.
Yeah.
Because he was all range and he dragged people in, and he would have had advantage and given advantage to other guys because of that. So that was really good of him. I think because both Kenji and Snow, they need to rely on others to like up their efficacy. Like Snow requires someone to be in combat with his target in order to get the sneak attack advantage, right? Kevin?
Sorry, yes, that's right. Or he needs to be hidden, or have advantage to get sneak attack. So there's certain conditions he needs to fulfill in order to be at his full combat effectiveness.
So most of the time he's relying on someone else, right? To be
yes.
Toggle to be 1v1ing another guy, whatever.
Yeah.
Or I think Kenji is similar in that aspect because he's much more. I think Open Fist monks are much more controller type heavy.
Yeah.
Where they pretty much paralyze or stun or strike or make things prone, which makes everyone else's job a lot easier. And they're not necessarily doing a lot of damage, but they are allowing everyone to do way more damage than they usually would. I guess
one of the benefits of monk is that, like, I'm not sure if this is specific to Way of the Open Hand or just all monk classes, but I think one of the benefits is that they're able to 1v1 quite effectively if they're in combat with a strong enemy that's focused just on the monk, right? I think their AC and their ability to stun and stuff like that proves very effective in a 1v1 situation. Especially later on, like, I know Way of the Open Hand, I think it's 17th or 20th level, so very far on, but they get an ability to near insta-kill. It's Quivering Palm or something like that.
Yeah.
So I think the 1v1 capability is very strong there. But again, like, how many combats are you doing it? Just a 1v1. Like, yesterday night, it was, I think it was Angry and Lost were on me, and it was like, I tried to hit twice, and I missed, and I had to use my bonus action to just run away. It didn't feel good. Like Kevin said, it doesn't feel good when you just miss, and it's like, it's made worse. It's exacerbated.
Yeah. It feels bad. Actually, you make a really good point there. Like, 1v1s, you would probably always win, but, like, the situation is niche. It just doesn't happen very often, right? Like, it just requires very special conditions. Like, Kevin requires special conditions to do damage with Snow, and the other classes can kind of hold their own because they have so many options with their kits. So yeah, I don't know. I think in terms of damage, you guys are probably on the lower side, but in terms of utility, at least, or providing benefit to the party, I'd say AK Kenji is just kind of up there. Like, if he ever gets a stun on one guy, that guy's probably completely fucked. Just get one of the big damage dealers on him. Like, if you stun one guy and get, like, Snow to hit him, like, that's it. That guy's dead because Snow gets advantage, and that's sneak attack and whatnot. So,
well, I think also Stunning Strike isn't Stunning Strike, like, straight up outclassed by, like, Whole Person, which paralyzes someone, so it's like insta critical.
I think they require different saves, obviously, and I think paralysis, you get insta criticals, but obviously it's a concentration spell and whatnot. There are downsides and benefits to either.
But I think in that case the downsides is almost negligible to for the effect that you get. Like, Stunning Strike, you get advantage, which is good, which is really good, right? But paralysis, you get advantage and you get guaranteed crit, which is huge. So
I think you're just trying to upplay other classes so you seem weaker. I'm gonna say it.
No, I'm just making the argument that Whole Person is probably better than Stunning Strike.
I disagree, because Stunning Strike can be used on anything. Hold Person can only be used on humanoids.
This is true.
Okay, fair. That's fair.
It's it changes, like, because, like, if you have hold monster or whatever, obviously that's really good, but that's also a really high level spell. If you use it, you can't use any other concentration spell. So, like, Storm would be losing his knives, Maple wouldn't be able to banish, whatnot, stuff like that. It's obviously a trade off. And the thing with monks is that they have multiple opportunities every turn to use Stunning Strike. Because if you hit with Flurry of Blows or your 2 attacks, that's what, four opportunities to use Stunning Strike, and you get to
So you got your 2 attacks, and then if you use Flurry of Blows, that's 2 attacks. So you've got 4 opportunities to stun. It's when you hit with a melee weapon attack or just an unarmed strike, you can spend a key point, and they have to make a con saving throw DC 15.
Yeah, that's 4 opportunities. Plus, do monks get extra attacks as they go up in level? Like,
I think that's
like level 12, they get 3 attacks or something? Or no, is that not right?
I think that's the only time I get a bonus. Not 100% sure. I gotta double check that.
Okay. Yeah, I think there's obviously trade-offs, but I don't know. I think monks are much stronger than Kevin you think they are. But you know, that's my thoughts. Anyway, combat went pretty well. I think you guys meshed pretty well together.
And then the mushrooms decide to lead us to I think one of the elder mushrooms take us to he takes us to a house, like a mushroom house, or he just takes us to where some magic items are, right? Like a stash.
Yeah, he takes you through his little mushroom huts, and he takes you to the back rooms where he opens up a mushroom stash with some magic items in there as your reward for your efforts here.
So what's the scale of these mushrooms? I had it in my head that they're like fully grown mushrooms are about the size of a dog, like an average dog.
We're talking about the myconids?
Yeah.
So the fully grown ones were the size of you guys. They're huge. Some are even bigger. So 6 foot, 7 foot. But the smaller ones, like with most plant life, they vary in size quite dramatically. Like a fully grown one could still be like half the size of a human. So it just varies a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, he takes you there. He's like, hey, here's some shit. Feel free to take it. He doesn't say that, obviously, because he doesn't have a mouth. But then you guys get a few spells, a few items. Maple identifies most of them. I'd say he is somewhat pleased with the spell scrolls he found there. And you guys marry on down the river stream. They take you by boat to the entrance of Dawnhelm, where you guys see the little guys being spun up in spider webs and bleeding this green viscous goo onto the ground. It's like dissolving the acid, and it's the heat and the acid in the air. And that's into the next mini arc where you guys will most likely encounter the drow. And I think that's where the session ends.
That's where the session ends.
Alright, so that's the end of the session. And I guess we should get into the big old fat recap now, right?
Yeah. Any questions, AK? Just in general, like.
I think I've got to hear this big recap that I've been excited for. I'll probably have questions as we go, but I'll try not to get too bogged down into them because I know it could be a very lengthy recap. But yeah.
No, feel free to ask them. This is, I think, this is going to be like kind of your introduction into the campaign in the world, like officially.
Yeah.
Like this is like a big lore dump a voluntary lore dump that.
I do have one question before we begin. So in terms of, I guess, content and lore, I think Albert mentioned to me before that this is sort of a mix of like his own homebrew stuff and some stuff that Matt's created and that you, Kevin, have created, some other people. So how much like input would you say, like percentage wise, is like per continent or per like part of the campaign has each person put into it? I'm curious.
It's a very mixed bag. I think Albert does most of the legwork in making it happen and putting his own stuff in it. But in terms of Axia, I guess I'll go by continent. Most of it is actually Albert, but not by much. I think Ubania, I came up with the idea of these very pragmatic Slavic type people who own slaves, and they've had a lot of fleshing out over the years, especially when Aiden played his old character named Ryan, who was an ex-Spec Ops Ubanian officer, and he ran some one-shots kind of expanding the Ubanian lore, and their a country that is, I'd say like, you say like Axia is like Australia. They're like where South Australia is. They're like in the middle south.
Okay. All right.
Part. And then Denethar, which is basically like New South Wales, Victoria area, was mostly Albert. And I think they're more of like your typical medieval Western power. You know, they have knights and kings and barons and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I think we might head back there at some point, depending on where the story goes.
Okay.
So that's been mostly Albert. And I think the desert part where we're in right now, the Al Hadaran Desert, which is like the Queensland area, just for reference, don't think of it as Australia at all, is mostly Albert as well. I did pitch in some ideas for like the desert area, but it's mostly been him doing that. To like Northern Territory, going over back to the west, I think we have like the Sten Mountains, which is like the dwarf place. That came from a character I played in a one-shot, which was based in the same world only like 1,000 years prior, who was like a dwarf barbarian who came from the Sten Mountains. And that was just like an off-the-cuff thing that I came up with. And Albert wrote that down and he expanded that out. I think actually that's where we are right now. We're like going into the heart of the Sten Mountains.
Cool.
Yep.
Okay.
And then over the mountains, I think is like half Ivory Vale, like half like the upper edge is probably Ivory Vale, and then towards the center is the Living Jungle. And I think the Living Jungle is mostly Lewis's work.
Right.
I don't know how much input Albert has had into that. That's mostly been between them. It's only come up here and there when Storm talks about his backstory and stuff like that. And then if you go towards Western Australia, you have this big, huge part that's just, it's all Ivory Vale, right? It's this nation of Ivory Vale, which is where the Dragonborn are native, which is where Toku is from. And Toku is like, his family used to be royalty that, you know, oversaw the whole nation there. And it's a big part of the landmass as well. It's like aptly comparable to Western Australia, which is like almost half the damn continent.
Yeah.
Right? Would you agree with that, Albert?
It's big. I don't know if it's that big, but it encompasses a large part.
I think on the map, on one of the early maps, the Ivory Vale was friggin' huge. So I think probably not to scale at this point, but it's big, right? I think I'd say it's probably bigger than the other countries in my head canon.
Cool.
And that's mostly been Matt and, well, would you say you've done a lot of work on that, Albert?
It's
in
mostly,
comparison to Matt,
mostly.
okay, it's mostly Albert. I think Matt did like just come up with like that sort of stuff, just like the name and, you know, some of the
we worked
a
together.
tiny bit of the lore for the backstory. But I think mostly it's for Albert. But I don't think there's much there. Like places we haven't been, there haven't been a lot of work done there, I'm assuming, because it's not relevant right now.
Correct.
So Ivory Vale is pretty bare bones at the moment, but I'm thinking like there are like really bare bones descriptions that we all have in our heads. Like Ivory Vale for me is like this very mountainous, rocky, almost barren place where these Dragonborn live very warrior tribalistic lifestyles. And Albert says that they all like are obsessed with this thing called the hunt, which is like some spiritual metaphorical lifestyle where everything's in pursuit of a everlasting hunt, right? Ubani I already described to you. They're like basically they're a human nation. They hate every other race but themselves. They have slaves. They believe in this god emperor Christoph, who they think is like the second, well, they think is Jesus, right? They think he's the Messiah. He's like this god.
Yeah.
But nobody ever and he's been around for thousands of years, apparently. And there's like this whole conspiracy, like, is he actually a god, or is he like a different person that just takes on the name or something like that.
Right.
Bit of a mystery there. Don't know if we'll ever go there at this point now that Ryan's out of the picture, unfortunately. But that definitely was explored a lot during the one-shots that Aiden ran. Denethor, actually, is it? How would you describe Denethor? I think Denethor is the most like grey mush in my head. Like,
yeah, Denethor is it's the mix, right? It's the generic fantasy world. You got kings, you got the barons, you got the farmers, the peasants. It's most races incorporated into one, where things are like every race is equal, but every race is also equally under the oppression of the nobility, right? Like people always have to pay taxes, whatnot. It's just the generic medieval fantasy setting, and we started there because I think that was just the simplest place to start. It's the easiest to immerse yourself into before you jump into the other wild alien places.
Yeah, and they're in this eternal war with Eubania, which is like there's this big long front, like that spans half the continent, which is just them fighting. For like, yeah, they've been fighting for over 1,000 years, and they've been fighting for so long that they don't even know what they're fighting for now.
Oh, jeez.
At least that's what I think. And
there
then
is-
there's other continents, right?
There are other continents.
There are other continents.
Revnost and
Kesari.
Kesari and the Crescent Isles. But yeah, none of those have really been explored that much. You've done a lot of work on the Crescent Isles, Kevin.
Hindsight now, probably actually not that much, because I think I would probably like scrap a lot of it and like just do it over. But yeah, the Crescent Isles is like this archipelago, which is kind of like Japan. You think of it as fantasy Japan. But I if I were to like write a lot of it now, I'd probably like diverge more from that stereotype. But when I first conceived of the idea, it was just like copy and paste fantasy Japan, honestly.
Okay.
But now I like what I see in my head is only probably like very loosely based on Japanese. Oh, it still has like a foundation in like Japanese, culture and that sort of thing. But I would do like different stuff to differentiate it from just being copy and paste Japan.
Right.
Revnost, I think, is basically fantasy China, right? Or fantasy Central Asia, I would say.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that, to be honest. But it's obviously up to interpretation. AK and I are working on some stuff to have a little more robust image around it, would you say?
Yeah, so just before we get into the big recap, I did want to cover off this little fun little thing I'm working on, and I want to get Albert's input into it as well as the DM. So I noticed last session, Kevin, you made a comment about, and it wasn't a criticism per se, but I wanted to improve my backstory after it. So you made a comment that my or Kenji's backstory was very like generic shonen protagonist type of backstory, and it got me thinking, and I was like, that is very, very true. Like I realized that was one of my main inspirations for the backstory, but I definitely didn't intend for it to be so like generic in that sense, and I also needed more motivation as to why Kenji does want to fight the strongest dudes and be the strongest guy, and like just level up all the time.
Yeah.
And one thing I came across, well, I just had a random thought, is what if there was, in Revnost, what if there was a sort of Mortal Kombat style tournament that's held by gods every century for a prize of some sort for the winning side? So all of this is very higher level right now. I haven't really ironed out all the details, but I spoke with Albert a bit about it yesterday. So from what I have written down right now, I won't get too much into the details because there's some super spicy stuff in here that I want to be able to surprise people with, or I want Albert to surprise people with, rather.
Yeah.
But essentially, yeah, it's sort of a Mortal Kombat tournament that's held in Revnost. It's held by the gods. By which god, I've yet to decide yet, but it's for a prize, and that prize is either going to be like a elixir of life type deal, or like a power source that just makes someone or a side super strong. So basically, Kenji's motivation behind trying to get stronger is that he wants to compete in this tournament. So each tournament that's held...
There's even a tournament arc in your backstory as well.
Yeah, there's a tournament arc. So each side, I guess, is a light and a dark side. They pick their strongest combatants from their generation to compete. And in the last tournament, the dark side cheated, but the gods overlooked it. They struck a deal with Baron Sivgis where he would empower them to win the tournament if he gave them part of the prize, or just the whole prize. And eventually, it turned out that he used that prize, that power source or whatnot, to basically destroy part of Revnost. And so Kenji feels that Baron Sivgis has sort of dicked all of Revnost by doing so, but he also wants to prove to the gods that the light side are worthy, and they must have an overwhelming victory to show this. So yeah, basically that's his motivation to become stronger. But Albert did mention to me that he does need also a motivation to stay with the party, and that part I'm still working on. But this all this tournament arc sort of stuff, I guess it would really impact Revnost, because it's a pretty huge thing to tilt the balance of good and evil in Revnost.
I like that for two reasons. I like it because it shows that you're thinking about your character a lot, and not that I think that you weren't doing that before. I think I even said so. Like you even think about your character during the first session, which I think is great. But you're doing it even more, which is fantastic. The second reason is that means we're going to Fantasy China, boys. We're going to Fantasy China. Hell yeah.
I did also like, I wasn't 100% sure, like when I was creating my character and sort of the lore and the cultural influences that I imagined. I did sort of imagine this was part like Chinese culture, part like Japanese culture. But then you having mentioned Crescent Isles being also part of like Japanese culture as well, I wasn't sure how much to dip into it. Obviously the name Kenji is very like Japanese, but aside from the name, I haven't actually like inserted too much copy paste culture from real life Japan or China. It's just in my head. That's what I envision, is a mix of Japanese, Chinese, Mongolian, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you could say, like, you could probably justify it in any way you want. I'm not too fussed about it, to be honest, because like now I'm kind of leaning away from being too heavily invested in Crescent Isles being Japan, being some sort of Japan. What's the word?
What?
Japan copy, right? There's another word I'm thinking of, but like just a copy of Japan, right?
Yeah.
But you could say like maybe like there's like a snow elf colony. They tried to colonize part of Reznov, or like one part of it, and then like they got beaten back, but the culture stayed, or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So yeah, definitely something that I'm still working on. And I did want Albert's input on it, just because it would greatly impact the scope of Revnost as a whole. But yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Scope of the campaign as a whole, if we're moving different continents at some point, huh? God damn, we got a whole journey ahead of us.
Very excited.
Yeah, I am very excited to see where this goes. Honestly, I'm very excited to see where the Civica situation goes, really, because the party currently has the deal to give the Oathbreaker away, and Kenji is not really part of that. So I want to see what that happens. Anyway, should we get into it? Is there any other exposition we need? Any other background info we need before we need to get into it, Kevin?
Not from me. Aiden? Questions?
Nah, not really. Sorry, it was just it's just kind of weird to hear Aiden, because you guys normally refer to me as AK.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry.
Like, I was waiting to hear from the other Aiden, and I was like, wait a second, he's not here.
I will endeavor to call you AK. I just confused myself as well.
That's cool. That's cool. No, you
okay,
guys go ahead.
Let's get into it. Feel free to ask questions whenever they pop up.
Yeah.
If you have any, we'll get into it. So starting session 1, campaign 1.
All right,
the
Kevin,
original
take it
trio.
away.
So this is all just off the top of my memory. I don't think Albert wrote anything like in preparation to give you this whole spiel. So
Hell no.
there is probably going to be parts missing as well that, like, I'll probably miss parts that Albert will remember, and Albert can jump in and fill in the gaps. There'll probably be parts that neither of us remember, and Matt can jump in if he remembers. Rainier can jump in if he's listening to this.
Okay, that's not happening.
Oh, okay. Well, fine. But there's going to be some holes. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
But this is the gist of it. Okay. So session 1, the original OG3, Snow, Tokul, and an old character called Sieg, who was a human cleric, wake up in a dungeon. We don't know why we've woken up into a dungeon. We wake up in a dungeon. One of the guards come in, and we basically beat him up while tied up, and we free ourselves. We fight our way through the dungeon, and I think we quickly learn when we go to the first town, or before we go to the first town, we meet this goblin character called
Torget.
That's
Yeah.
it, and he's riding like some wolves or something like that. And I think we freed him. Didn't we free him from the dungeon as well?
He was also part of the captives.
Yeah.
Him and the village girl.
Right, they were in the same cell with her. That's right.
Yeah.
So we free them. Torget, rides away on a wolf, and the girl, I think her name was Elena or Eleanor,
Yep.
takes us to a nearby village where her father is the village elder, and I don't know at what point we realized that all three of us have had something important taken from us when we got held captive. But at some point we realized that, and the village elder says, like, I think he clues us in that there's something going on with some like smugglers or something like that, like his brother, his slavers. So we go to check that out. We talk to Victor, who was like a head slaver, or he's like a part of the resistance. This is going back like 3 years ago now, so the memory is very fuzzy.
That's okay.
We fight a Fredgar. We meet another Fredgar who is like a werewolf. I think we also meet them both in the same encounter, which made it doubly confusing. And we basically beat the crap out of the village elder's brother, Victor, and he tells us that our shit is being held in the next town, which I think is Leyhurst. The next town is Leyhurst.
So, if I can jump in, the initial plot was that these guys go to the village because the village girl is like, "Hey guys, I'm from this local village. Please, take me there so I can give you gifts and whatnot." And so they go there. They meet for the very first time two recurring characters, Sol and Demi, who are these traveling traders who they meet throughout the campaign every now and then. And the village elder's like, "Hey, I don't have your shit, but I know a guy who does. This is a guy who's been smuggling like slaves and shit. You go beat him up and take your shit back." So they go there, they beat him up, and then they realize they don't have their shit. They sold their shit to a baron. And then they also realize that the village elder is also not quite a good guy because he's been selling people as slaves as well. And there's this quick 180 where the party turns around, they beat up the village elder as well, and then sell him into slavery.
Oh wow!
So that was a little yuggies.
Did we sell him into slavery?
Yeah. Was that? Yeah, I think you sell him to slavery and you kill his bodyguards.
Quick question.
Yes.
So as a DM, right, like when your party makes less than morally acceptable or morally good decisions, do you punish them in any way? Like from deviating from, I guess, how they're supposed to be? I don't know. It's a very open-ended question, but
this was very early on, right?
Yeah.
So nobody's moral compass has been quite attuned to the world yet.
Yeah.
And we were very in the gameplay sense where everything was just kind of a game.
Yeah.
So it's it's like petty justice to sell the slaver into slavery, whatnot, kind of deal.
Right.
So at that moment in time, of course it's ethically questionable, but it's a game, whatever.
I don't think we sold him into slavery. I remember beating the utter shit out of him, but I think in the end we let him go.
You give him to Victor.
That's
you
what I
give him to
remember.
Victor. No. You guys give him to Victor, who is also a recurring character who comes up later on. And yeah, the world does come back to get a bit of revenge on them, because Elena makes a return like 40 sessions, no, not 40, like 20 sessions later, where she backstabs the party and tries to sell them to the orcs or something. But yeah, that's much later on.
Oof.
So yeah, you guys go to Leyhurst. Sorry, continue, Kevin.
We go to Leyhurst. This part is fuzzy to me too, actually. I don't remember much that happens in Leyhurst, but I think this is where Tokal meets Sugar, because, he wants to go around, have some fun. So he goes to a local brothel, and he sleeps with 2 prostitutes. One is Sugar, and I think the other one's Spice.
Yeah,
Right?
Sugar and Spice.
Sugar and
That is
Spice.
correct.
And Spice is a dragon-born woman, but Sugar is a human woman. And that's where this whole infatuation from Sugar comes from. Even though basically Tokal's only met her like a handful of times, literally. But she comes back in the later sessions, or sessions beyond this one. What else do we do in Leyhurst? Do we learn of the Baron in Leyhurst as well?
So the goal of Leyhurst was obviously to get your shit back, right? And the Baron had it. And so you guys organized a semi-heist where you infiltrate his party and...
I thought that was in Guildford, though. The next town over.
Guildford is... No. That's where you guys run away from the guy who's trying to test you. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
So this one's Leyhurst. So they go in...
Oh, okay. It's coming back to me now. Yes.
Yeah. So they go in, they do the semi-heist, they get their shit back, and then the town is raided by an orc raiding party. And everything's going up in flames. The party goes and they save Sugar. They end up... I think you guys... Do you kill the Baron? Technically he's not a Baron, he was like a lord or something.
Well,
but
we're skipping over a lot of stuff here, because actually a lot of stuff happens in
going through a
Leyhurst. But I'll go through it quickly. So before the orcs come, we actually do a lot. We're organizing this heist with this local crime boss called Tyr, who's a halfling or a gnome or something like that. He basically helps us plan this heist in the Baron's mansion, because he took all our shit. Because there's going to be like some ball happening, right?
Right.
There's some party going on.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, like, we have to fulfill like a bunch of different things. Like, we have to scope out like which window we're gonna break into. We're scoping out the guard shifts and stuff like that. And one of the guards we meet is this young kid, or like young man called Bennett, right? And we basically trick him or talk him out of being on guard duty the night of the party. And he's like, "Yeah, fine, I'll do it if you help me get with this girl." I'm like, "Okay, fine, we'll help you get with this girl, right?"
The NPC
turns out
motivations.
this turns out that this quote unquote girl is a married woman, right? Who's married to a guy that she loves.
Happily married, yes.
And so we're like, okay, fine, we'll help you. And I think that there was another elf chick that like wanted something from us, but basically she falls out of the story fairly quickly, because we screw her over or something, because she screws us first, or she's just a bitch. We just screw her because she's a bitch. But the story with this Bennett character, basically, we try to help him at first, and then we find out that she's married, and we're like, "Well, look, we tried, but you'll still hold your end of the bargain?" And he's like, "Fine." But then I think a while later, he comes to us running, and he's like, you gotta help me. And we follow him back to the house, and it turns out that his love interest is got mangled, right? There's blood everywhere, and she's like lying on the bed, and she's dying, and I think she does die in his arms there. And Bennett like has this look in his eye, and it's like, it must have been Fredgar, that guy, he did this. I think we're like, okay, we'll look for Fredgar. We'll find Fredgar for you. So we managed to track him down into the sewers, and we find out, like, through like clues and stuff, like scratches on the wall and fur and stuff, that, you know, there's some beast down here, and we come to the conclusion that Fredgar's a werewolf, which he is. And we go in there, we fight some low life trash down there that's been hiding out in the sewers. We find Fredgar, and I think there's some other monster there, like this giant worm, demonic worm that's hiding in the sewers that we kill as well, right?
Yeah.
And basically, I think Fredgar helps us out as well, because like he's like, I'll help you if you let me live. So like, okay, fine. Anyway, we kill the giant worm, and as we come back up from the sewer, then the raid happens, the orc raid happens, and we try to maneuver our way back. And I think we hide out in the tavern for a little bit. Then I think at this point, Bennett comes around and he's like, where's Fredgar? I'm gonna kill him. And basically Sieg takes him outside, and me and Toko are watching from the window, and Sieg basically indoctrinates Bennett into his cult. Sieg was a part of this cult that's on the south side of Ubania called the
Orange Heart.
The Orange Heart, right? Which is like an organization of like judges that basically, you know, they execute the judgment of the Orange Heart Grove or whatever. And he's like some special agent or something like that. And he's like, hey, join my cult, and I'll give you power, and I'll help you kill Fredgar or something like that, right? Or like, I'll give you power if you just let him live.
Okay.
And Bennett's like, yeah, whatever. What? Oh no, he does kill Fredgar, right? He does kill Fredgar at this point, right?
Yeah.
Fredgar gets mutilated by this kid because Fredgar was on his last legs anyway. He gets killed. Then Sieg takes him into his cult, and he's like, all right, I'm gonna put this mark on your hand, and you can go off. And so that's the last we see of Bennett for a long time.
Because Bennett wanted to go hunt the original werewolf who infected Fredgar with lycanthropy. So he's like, all right, I'm gonna go get revenge. Give me some power boost. And Sieg's like, all right, as long as you join the cult.
Or was it Fredgar? Like, did Fredgar get away and he like just followed Fredgar? Right?
I believe you're misremembering in that the husband of the wife, he was just a victim of the lycanthropy, and so he kills the wife in his first transformation, and Bennett walks into this incident, and Bennett kills the husband, and then Bennett's like, holy shit, lycanthropy, where's the original lycanthrope? And that's Fredgar who managed to escape, which you guys all escaped from the sewers.
So Fredgar's
he's got a whole revenge quest.
Fredgar's the original lycan.
Yeah,
he
OG
wasn't
lycan.
yeah. Okay. That's I thought it was Fredgar all along. So like he was the husband and everything, but
yeah, it was a long time ago. Yeah, there was an OG lycan out there.
So that's the last we see of Bennett. We go in, we do the heist, we break in, we all pretend to be like servants to the Baron. Snow is this old janitor dude who basically just pesters people to ask like, hey, what's upstairs? I think Tokul is like a servant man, and no. Sieg's a servant man, and Tokul. What is Tokul doing? He's a noble, right? No, Sieg's a noble. Tokul's a servant. I'm getting it all mixed up. Anyway, we eventually find out that upstairs, no one ever goes upstairs, and we decide to go up there. It's super dusty. And I think we find a key, or like we find a key that leads to a trap door in the back of the cellar that goes down to this basement. We go down this basement and we find all this, like, you think of like Dead Space and the Necromorphs, and there's like body parts everywhere and dead bodies and stuff, and like the centaurs from Fallout, like it's just, there's human experiments everywhere, and we're like, good God, what's happening down here? What is the Baron doing? And I think we find our shit down there after killing some of these grotesque experiments. Snow gets his sword, Sieg gets his book, and Tokul gets his hammer.
Divine Light, Executioner of the Wicked.
That's it.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
And meanwhile, while we did all of that, the party's ended, and I think we hear like a scream come from above. So we rush up to the second floor again, and we find the Baron there, who's got sugar. He's got sugar at knife point, and so we're like, oh shit. So Snow found this arrow, which lets him teleport to wherever he shot it. So he shot the arrow behind the Baron and killed him there, which Sieg was not happy with because he wanted to question the Baron, but I was just there to save the girl. And Sugar is safe. And then there's like another raid, right, at this point? Because we all need to leave. We need to leave, right?
Yeah.
So we leave with Tyr and that kid, what's his name? Soul,
yeah. Soul and Demi. Yep.
Tyr and this other chick called Penny, I think.
Yes. So there was another little subplot there where Tyr, the Thieves Guild ambassador, needed to rescue his daughter, which was also under the captivity of the Baron.
That's right.
And
yeah.
I think she's still in like a comatose state or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they all partied together to venture out of the burning town of Leyhurst to the next city of Guildford. And some shit goes down there, Kevin. What happens?
Is this all like, are you following all of this? Is this making sense?
Yeah, like chronologically it's making sense, yeah.
Okay.
There's a lot of characters there.
I'm just remembering it as I go, so like I'll be changing stuff like
I'm
midway
sure it's
as
very
I'm saying.
confusing.
What
yeah.
session is this like at this point when you're going
This
to
is
Guildford?
Currently it's session...
This is like session
10?
5. No.
No, it was
It's
session
not
5.
it's not session 10. It's not session 10 at that point.
Okay, between 5 and 10, let's call it like 7 or 8.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right, yeah, it's session 5.
Because 10 is halfway
look at
to
my notes.
Trident,
Yep.
I think.
Cool.
So we head to Guildford, and I think we go and tell the Duke that, hey, there's this big orc invasion happening there, and the Duke is acting real weird. Like the whole situation is real sus. Like there was either like heaps of guards or no guards, right? And when we went up to the Duke, he like was acting like he was dead or something. Like he looked like he was dead or something like that. He was acting super strange, and he didn't like us. He didn't like us for some reason. So we're like, oh shit. Okay, well, what do we do? So as we come out, we get called over to like the slum part of the town, and then here we meet up back with Victor, the slaver from before, and he's like, hey, you guys from before. Hey, we're setting up a resistance, to defend the town from the orc invasion. We want you to help us. And I think we like reluctantly said yes in the end, but we didn't want to at first. For some reason, I think Snow was at his edgiest this time. He's like, I don't care about this.
Edgiest.
Yeah.
There was a literal rap battle at that moment.
Oh wow.
I don't know how that occurred, but
Yeah.
a rap battle did occur at that point in time. Yeah, and Snow was super edgy at that time.
Yeah.
Ultra edge.
Max edge.
Yeah.
So he's like, I don't care about these people. Let them die. Like I'm just here for my own goals. I want to skip town as soon as I can. But eventually, somehow through the rap battle, he was like, okay, fine, I'll stay for the battle.
Like the actual battle, not the rap battle.
Yes, yeah, the oncoming orc invasion, right?
Okay.
And then some stuff happens in the town. I'm not sure at this point. I think Tokul meets his original god, Vanskir, because he was a barbarian at this point, right? And like during no, that's later on. That's like beach episode where he meets him, right?
You know what we should do? We should get like a paint thing and stream it to AK so he can get like a good grasp of what's going on.
Kevin here, currently editing this episode as I record this. If you're still listening up until this point, then thanks. Means a lot. we're going to have a video component on the podcast for the very first time, so feel free to turn on your screen and watch as Albert scribbles all over his hand-drawn map of Axia while I bubble through the campaign recap to AK, all coming fresh off the scrambled eggs inside my skull. If you can't watch or won't watch, you're not going to miss much. Enjoy.
Alright, so just a quick recap. The party started like over here. Let me get a thicker boy here. Like 5. They started like over here, right? On the coast. On the coast of this kingdom of Danathar, which is pretty much all of this area, right?
Yeah.
And they journey from town to town. They go like here, and then they go like up here, and they go like over here. And eventually they go all the way over here, which is the city of Guildford, where we are currently at, where they have some sus moments with the Baron, right?
Yeah.
Alright, let's kick off there.
Okay, so Victor roped us into the resistance against the orcs, and I think the next day the Baron, we get summoned to like another hovel in the slums, and we go in there, and the Baron's there, right, with these 2 fuck-off knights, right, and he's like, all right, I'm going to take each of you into the next room one by one, and then I'm going to ask you some questions, right? So he takes all of us in. I can't say for the other 2, but when he took Snow in, he's like, okay, I'm going to give you some money if you betray the other 2. And so I was like, yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. So, everyone finishes their quote-unquote interviews, and then suddenly Snow like gut punches Tokul, and he's like, yeah, give me the money. And then I don't know how it came to this, but we get into a scuffle with like the 2 big knights because like I don't think like they weren't going to give us the money or something like that, or like we wanted to escape because the Baron was like, he's like, I was testing you, and we're like, wait, this is sus. Why would you test us?
Test of loyalty.
Why are you testing us?
Failed.
And so Snow threw the bag of gold into the guard safe, and we all jumped out of the window, like glass breaking and everything. And then there's this whole chase where we are like running our asses out of the town, and there's all these guards chasing us. We're running over mud. We climb over the wall. We run into the forest, and that's it. We don't ever go back to Guildford again.
Can I just add it real quick? I find it funny that in the last session, Snow went to Maple and was like, do you trust Kenji? And then you are telling me you gut punched him for some gold and you didn't get it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, this is like Wild West days of the campaign. We're all new to role playing. I didn't know any better. Like, I didn't know like being edgy was actually like a shit thing to do. So, but I learned. I eventually learned that that's not a fun way to play for yourself or anyone else.
One of the biggest issues we had in the early campaign days is that every player character hated the other player characters. There was no team cohesion. Everyone was just kind of doing their own selfish goals.
Yeah.
And it just didn't make for a fun experience, so we had to change a lot of things up in order to reach I guess a satisfactory
and we didn't have a unified goal as a party to work towards.
I will add, in my previous campaign, that's what it was like as well. So I'm seeing a lot of similarities with an early campaign where all the characters were still like, granted they were still trying to get to know each other and their goals and stuff, but we had 2 edgy boys, and it's very hard to be cohesive because even as PCs, like the actual human controlling their PC was just like, no, I don't want to do that. And then DM was struggling to unify us.
Yeah.
There was 2 of us that wanted to do good. So it was me and the other more experienced player who was a cleric. We were both like, yeah, let's fight the evil, do the stuff. And the 2 edgy boys, we had a rogue, which was the person that wouldn't stop speaking, and
Classic
then
rogue.
the other guy, which was, I think he was a paladin, but an edgy paladin, and that was the guy that didn't show up most of the time. Those 2 just didn't want to give anything away about their characters because mystery, but it got really difficult to find a unified goal, be a cohesive unit, and actually do stuff because they didn't want to do anything with us.
That's why it's such a big sticking point for me, at least, that every new character has to have a reason to actually adventure with the party.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it devolves into that, well, I want to do this, but you want to do that, and it just makes it much more complicated to get anything done at all. That's at least my reasoning for that.
I mean, like, character motivation aside, as a player, I just wanted to, just be with the party and actually play D&D, not just a solo campaign,
Yeah, it's not fun that way.
Yeah. But anyway, back to the recap.
Kevin, what happens?
So we run into the forest. We lose the guards eventually, and I think we run into like some goblins, or we run into an old friend. We run into Torgut, right?
Yes, indeed.
Goblin.
And I think we had like a ring of animal speak, or like ring of something translation, which let things that couldn't normally speak. Something like that. Did we have that on hand, or
it was like a ring of translation or something. I don't know.
So
we gave it from a noble guy. Yeah.
Yeah, we gave it to Torgut, who we couldn't communicate with because there was a language barrier, and he had this like really posh British accent.
A thick British accent. Yeah.
For some reason, and I don't know how we get from this point to. I think this is like where we like meet the orc. We go into the orc camp. Like we start heading back down, right?
So the premise of this whole arc is that there are a bunch of orcs coming from Blackhold, right? And they're pretty much invading most of Denethor. And there's this massive siege that's happening here. And the party's like, well, we're just gonna circumvent this and go around. And their whole plan is to get all the way down here.
Yes.
Yeah.
The reason why we're going down there is because at some point we learn that the orcs are actually like they're not invading the place. They're running from something.
Oh.
Yes.
They're running from something. So we're like, oh, okay. If we stop that, then the orcs stop invading.
Right.
So we still wanted to like defend the town, but we're gonna do it our own way. We're gonna go our own way.
Right. So you're still on the erring on the side of good.
Yes, for the most part. And I think at that point, like, we just needed something for the party to do, right?
Yep.
Otherwise, we're just going to keep
Otherwise,
walking
it
in.
would fall apart. Yeah.
Exactly. So there was a lot of, like, legwork, like, that didn't work well in the narrative that we just did just for the sake that we would keep playing together, right?
Yes.
Not to say that, like, the players themselves, we had beef with each other, but the characters were not working at the time, right? It wasn't working at all.
Yeah.
So we
rocky start.
We head down. We basically skirmish with some orcs on the way. We get to this orc camp, and we kill some orcs at the orc camp. We find, and this is where Snow is the edgiest, right? We find the orc warlord who's like killing these kids, right? And he's holding these kids hostage. And Snow doesn't care because he's maximum edge.
Oh no,
he kills 3 kids because he doesn't care.
Oh wow!
Because the orc warlord is holding them in front of him, and Snow just slices right through them, and we kill the orc warlord because he doesn't care. He's max edge, right? Maximum edge Snow.
Yikes!
And it was like at this point, I was starting to realize as a player, like, wait, this is fucked up. I don't want to do this.
At this point.
It took a few kids, but yeah, we got there.
Took a few kids.
Yeah, so if I may intervene a little bit, they go into the camp, they kill some orcs, they kill the general, and like the flares are sent up, and all the orcs are kind of rushing to help out the general, and now these guys are like fleeing the area, and while they're fleeing, their good goblin friend is caught up in the crossfire, and he dies a tragic death at the hands of I think it was like a javelin or something thrown by one of the orcs, and Torgut dies, and so do the rest of the goblins. And now the party's left alone, and that's a good sticking point because later on, we find out that Storm was old friends with Torgut, which is why he knows Goblin, and they were old companions.
Yep.
All right. Anyway, please continue.
Sorry, wait. Is this where Storm joins the campaign?
No, he joins later on.
He joined for like another 15 sessions. Yeah.
He doesn't join for a long while.
It's just a good lore insert, I guess.
Yeah. So we start heading down, and I think eventually we come across Curethal's Refuge, right there in big letters. which is this town of animorphs, right? They like can turn into animals,
Animorphs.
or they're like half animals or something like that, right? They're like
Yeah,
there's
most of
fox
them-
people.
Like, are we talking
Make it sound like a
druid
furry
style?
village.
Yeah, I'm thinking, are we
It's-
talking druid style or furry
It's
style?
more it's like lycanthropy, right? It's like half, like most of them are were rats, were vampires, were tigers and stuff.
Yeah, rats.
Yeah, so it's a bit of a mixed bag of everything.
Okay. Yeah.
And the person in charge, her name was Ursine, I think. She was a
Yeah.
werebear. Werebear?
Oh yeah. Well, but before that, we meet a fox, a werefox called was it a werefox? A werefox
it was
called
were-
Lysander, right? Remember Lysander?
He was a tiger. He was a tiger.
Oh, were-tiger, Lysander. But I think like some of them, like they were so into their lycanthropy that they were constantly like in a middle state between their human form and their animal form. So they were like, Lysander was like a tiger person essentially, but he was like a human were-tiger. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like a bipedal tiger.
Yeah. Like Storm, but like
Yeah,
it's
like
not
Storm.
supposed to be a tiger. It's not supposed to be a tiger.
Yeah.
So the
ah.
difference between these lycanthroped slash, I don't know, just shit morphing animal people and a tabaxi, like what is the major difference?
I believe one's magically inflicted, right?
Right.
So
Yeah,
like
it's a, like-
lycanthropy is a curse.
It's a disease, right?
Yeah.
So,
Versus one is you're just born like that.
And usually in bad cases you can't control when you transform, which is
I
the
see.
difference. And then tabaxi is that's just their state of being, being a half cat, or being a cat person.
right. Okay. Cool.
As-
Yeah.
So we meet Lysander like during one of the skirmishes, and he leads us to Curethal's Refuge, which is this whole community of lycanthropes. Well, lycanthropes means werewolf, but for the sake of this, it's the were people, right? Lycanthropes are were people. We're using that terminology that way. And we meet what's her name? Ursine,
Ursine.
who's a werebear, and she's like this little kid. Or her human form is like a little kid, right? But when she transforms into a bear, she like it's a huge brown bear that fucks shit up. I don't remember what deal we made with her, but I think she tells us like, "Hey, we caught this guy killing one of our own, Fredgar," and we're like, "Oh, okay. Well, what's up with this guy?" We go down to the cell. We find Bennett, the kid from the Layhurst town.
Yeah.
And he's there, and he's like catatonic, right? He's like completely blank face after killing, Fredgar. Maybe he's like doesn't have any purpose anymore. He wants to die or something like that. And we're like, oh shit. Hey, look, we can take this guy off your hands. We say to Ursine, and she's like, all right, fine. I don't remember what we actually like. I know part of the deal is we take Bennett off her hands. But I don't know like why she wants us to do that, or like what she like gives us in return for that.
I think it's just the were people didn't want anything to do with him, and they were technically in this grey area where Fredgar was technically in exile of the Refuge, so they didn't really have jurisdiction over whether to punish Bennett or not for his crime.
Okay.
So they're just like, you just take him from us.
Okay. So yeah, not much actually happens there. Now that I remember, like we take Bennett, who's catatonic. Sieg, like, actually, there's a discussion where we are deciding whether to take Bennett or not, right? Snow's like, let's not take him because where we're heading, he will most surely die. And she's like, nah, he's my brother. He's part of my cult. I'm taking him. And so Snow's like, okay, fine. But he's your responsibility. I'm not going to, I'm not going to take responsibility if he gets killed. And so, fine. That's all sorted. We take him with us. And I think at this point, we decide that there are 3 routes to the Black Hole Mountain. So there's like a really long route, which is fairly safe. I think that goes along the coast or along the
it's like this
inland.
one, like this.
There is like a shorter route, but it goes through enemy controlled territory. And then there's like a middle route, which is like, it's fairly long, but it's lightly guarded. So we decide, okay, let's go through the middle route, right? We don't want to take 5 years to get there, but we don't want to get harassed every pebble we cross. So we decide to go through the middle route. Meanwhile, Sieg is like preaching all this stuff to Bennett, and Bennett it's just going through one ear and out the other. Bennett's like not listening. He's like his blank stare all the way through. And we basically run into some fights with some orcs. We get to this drawbridge, or not a draw. We get to this rope bridge, right? And there's orcs coming on one side of the bridge, and there's orcs coming up behind us.
Cool.
So Snow was like, "Oh shit! Okay, everyone get on the end of the bridge." So everyone gets on the end of the bridge, and Snow cuts the ropes, and the bridge goes down. Basically, falls off one end, and we start climbing on the side of the crevice, this
Classic.
huge ravine, right? And we're getting shot at, and you know we just make it into this tiny hole on the side in the side of the ravine. And we're like, okay, well, only way is forward now. So we head into the cavern, and we find ourselves into this bigger opening of the cave. And here, and I think it was like an ancient temple, or ancient building, because there was like lots of like engravings and stuff on the wall.
A lot of spider and drow imagery. Yes.
Yeah. And then this big spider woman called a Drider comes down from the roof, and she starts speaking Elvish to us. And Snow is an elf, but where he's from, the language has diverged so much that it's almost a different language, right? So he can only pick up like the gist of what she's saying, like only just. And basically, I think she says that like our charge is being held in this mountain, this big mountain, Blackhold Peak, which is right there. And if you swear to help us, we won't kill you, basically, essentially. So we're like, don't have a choice there. So we head out the other side of the ravine. We find ourselves on this hillside, and there's Blackhold Peak. We head down there, and we find, I think there's an expedition party, or we run into some of Tokel's old retainers. There was a actual red dragonborn who I always thought was blue, whose name was Barash. He was one of Tokel's father's liegemen, right?
Right.
And he's there with some other dudes, another dragonborn, and I think like a human woman.
Yeah, there's like a party of other adventurers.
Yeah, there's party of some other ones, and they're gonna go down to Blackhold Peak. I forget their reasoning why.
So they're not held captive, are they? They're just there.
No, we find them at the entrance there, right. Just like getting ready to go in.
I see. Okay.
I forget why they're actually there in the first place.
I believe you guys were always meant to meet these guys, because these guys were the first expedition sent by Victor down here.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they never returned, so you guys were the ones to have to finish the job. So,
yeah. Well, so what were they doing that entire time?
They were meant to get rid of the source, like you guys, but they never managed to do it.
Yeah, but what were they doing? Like, other than their objective that they didn't do?
That's it. They just kept trying to do it, but they couldn't do it.
Oh, they couldn't do it?
Orcs and elves and spiders and danger.
Okay, you know. Well, that makes sense. So they're like, oh, with you guys here, we can probably go in and clear them out now. And we're like, okay, sure. So me and Tokel go in first, and with the rest of the other gang, and Sieg stays outside with Bennett. And at this point, something happens, right? And we don't learn until later on in that session. We go into Blackhold Mountain, right? And it's really deep. It's really claustrophobic. The walls are they're getting smaller. The tunnel is getting tighter and tighter, and we eventually make it into this big cavern. This huge. Oh wait, is that where that happens? No, that happens before, right? Okay, wait. Something happens before that, right? On the way to Blackhold Mountain, let's bring it back a little bit. We go into a dungeon. We meet Barash before Blackhold Mountain, right? So we're actually traveling with Barash for a long while. Is that correct?
So the way I recall it is that once you guys exited from the Blackhold, from the cavern that you guys came from the ravine, you exit out and you find the other party of adventurers just kind of chilling.
Right.
You guys meet up, and I believe you're attacked by something, and half of them like die or something. So it's really just you guys plus Barrage.
Yep.
And you guys decide to go back to Blackhold Peak and explore it a little bit. And you guys go in one time. You guys go in twice, but the first time you go in just to scout it out.
That's it.
You
right.
find that most of the areas are trapped and stuff.
You're right. But
Yes.
only me and Toko go inside. Meanwhile, while we're scouting it out, Sieg is outside with Bennett. And for some reason, and I still am not sure to this day, Sieg decides that Bennett is not right for his cult. So he cuts off the hand of Bennett that has the mark on it, right?
Ooh.
And Bennett is just left for dead outside the cavern. And Sieg starts running off. He runs off. And he gets chased by this blue demon, which we actually met before, but I didn't remember until now. There's this blue demon that starts chasing him to the coast. And apparently there's like a ship or something on the coast there, and that'll take him back to his that place just across the moor there. Yeah. And Sieg almost gets killed, but he gets away. And that's the last we see of Sieg forever.
Yep.
And
So I think
Bennett's-
Rainier at the time wanted to change characters.
Okay.
And Bennett's fucked. Yeah.
He's
like-
KIA,
yeah,
or
he's-
he's just 0 HP.
No, he's like, yeah, he's almost dead.
Okay.
We come out. Bennett is like got his hand chopped off. I think his wound was cauterized, so he's not like bleeding out or anything. But he's fucked up. He's maimed, right? And we're like, holy shit. Well, why would Sieg do this, right? We never find out right. Why? Because we never see Sieg again. And Tokul like makes this quest like, he took our bag of holding. We've got to go back and get it. We never do. Spoiler, we never do. And we're like, oh shit. Okay, well, this time, I think after a little while, we prep for a little while, we go back in with Bennett, right? Like, we can't afford to leave him out there where anyone could get him. We take Bennett with us into Black Hole Mountain.
Don't forget Eisen.
Right, sorry. We like go out and start adventuring for a little bit. We go into this orc camp, right? And we beat up some orcs. And then this weird warforged starts floating out, like looking like it's like a woman in like admiral clothes or something like that, like navy clothes, right? Like a navy suit, you know, like
She's in a suit.
yeah, like but it's like it's like a navy suit. It's got like the
Yeah.
shoulder pads with the little tussles and stuff like that.
Yeah, I get that. Yep.
And she's floating, and she's a warforged, but she's got like very human features. It's not very like blocky like a warforged is supposed to be. It's like a synthetic human. She's got like very white skin with like white like circuitry going up her neck.
Okay.
And we meet Rainier's new character, Eisen, and she joins us. Don't have a really good reason for her joining us. We're just like, hey, you were captured by them. We freed you. We come along. That's it. Wild West days, all right. Wild West days. We don't have good justification for anything.
Nope. Shit was wild.
And so we go back to Black Hole Peak, and this time we're like, okay, we're going in there for real now, and we're taking Bennett with us. Brush comes with us. We go into the cavern through the claustrophobic tunnels, and we come into this bigger cavern, right? And there is a lot of people there. And earlier in the campaign, we learned that in this part of the country, a lot of people have been going missing from local villages. And we find out there's a lot of people here, like in chains. And there's like this rock platform that goes up, and there's this huge, like bulging, pulsating mass that's wrapped up in these huge chains. Like, and there are a couple people there. There's like 3 people there. We go up there, and it's 3 snow elves. There's this one priest cleric dude, and there's 2 like big knights there. Big warriors, 2 big warriors clad in metal armor. And we're like, hey, what are you doing down here? And he's like, what does it look like? I'm sacrificing people. And we're like, what? Hey, you can't do that.
Pikachu face.
After all we've done, right? Richer of us to say that. So we start fighting him, right? And eventually, so we start fighting him. And Bennett's like, hey, I want to do something. I'm going to do something. I'm going to save these people. And we're like, hey, Bennett, stay back. You'll get yourself killed. He's like, I don't care. He runs straight for one of these knights. And we try to stop him, but fail. He runs straight for these knights. He gets 1-2 bonked on the head. He's unconscious on the floor. And the knight's like, man, get out of here, kid. And he stabs him in the chest, and Bennett dies.
Get out of here.
He
Proceeds
dies,
to kill him.
and we're like, oh, shit! Eventually, we kill the knights. We kill the snow elf priest, we later learn, whose name is Hero, right? And he has a note on him that we read later. And we're like, oh, shit. We really fucked up. We're really fucked up. Like, Bennett never should have been here, and we got him killed. And everyone's feeling guilty about this. We eventually rescue all the people. We take them out. But the ritual inside Black Hole Mountain is complete. Like, it was pretty much complete by the time we got there. And so we all had to rush out because whatever was in those chains is breaking out now. And like, we all rush out. We meet outside the entrance. And there's this gaggle of people out there with us. And we're like, all right, what are we going to do with all these people? And so we eventually decide, okay, we're going to have to take them back to their homes where they belong. But first, we bury Bennett. We bury Bennett where he, and, you know, we have some words there. And I think this is where I start realizing, like, this, like, Snow's, like, has some guilt. He's feeling guilt. And he's like, hey, why am I feeling guilt? Like, this wasn't my problem. But it is now. Somehow it is. And then eventually, after we say some words about Bennett, we leave him there. We take the people with us. And Barash. Barash the Red.
I think Barash at some point splits off for some reason. I forget why.
It's like after the first or second village, he goes away.
Yeah.
And like him and Toku are like, hey, we'll meet back together in like 6 months and we'll make an army and we'll take back the Irie Vale.
That never happens.
Spoiler alert, never happens. We never see Barash again. Go ahead.
Something you forget to mention is that when Bennett ran into, you know, sacrifice himself for a greater cause, you know, he only decided to do so because the next up in line for the sacrifice was this kid by the name of Lucius, who
right. That's
ends
important.
up to be a rather major character down the line. All right, and he ends up adventuring with him. He ends up bonding fairly well with Aizen and Tokel and stuff, and it turns out there is some secret to him later on. Please continue. Yes.
Yeah, that's important. Thanks for reminding me and filling in the gaps. So yeah, we have this kid whose blood is blue for some reason.
Ooh.
He's got blue blood, but he's a human. So mystery there. And I think he also finds a Displacer Beast cub, right? Eventually.
I think in one of the villages as like a side quest.
Yeah. And I think on the way to the first village, or in between the first and second village, we meet this peculiar character in this very lavish, gaudy armor. He's got blonde hair, looks like Prince Charming from Shrek. And his name was Steven. And he's like, you there! Yes, you! I challenge you to a fight. And Tokel's like, alright, bring it on. Tokel ends up beating the crap out of Steven. He's like, you haven't heard the last of me. And he runs off. He turns up here and there later, but ultimately not a very important character. He's just some guy, some cocky ass guy that we run into from time to time. You know, bit by bit, we drop off the villages, and we make it to Brunswick. And by the time we get to Brunswick, like, the last of the people get dropped off there, and we stay in Brunswick for a little bit. So we're like, okay, well, let's make our way to where Sieg is to get our shit back, right? That's our objective for now. So we're going to travel through Denethor, through Eubania to the Heart Grove and, you know, find out where that guy is, because he took our shit before he took off.
Wait, didn't he just take a bag of holding?
Well, the bag of holding had shit in it.
Oh, had shit, right. Oh, okay.
It had
Makes
stuff
more
in
sense.
it that we wanted, right?
Yeah.
But we're like, okay, but before we do that, we need to get some money. So we decide to stay in Brunswick and do some jobs on the notice board. So we're like, there's a bunch of jobs there, a bunch of tiny jobs there, and then like there's this note. There's a note there that like kids have been going missing in a village a day away. And we're like, that village is a day away. We'll leave that until last. So we start doing all the jobs. We go into a mine. We fight a zombie beholder. Almost die. We come out. We do like odds and ends here and there in Brunswick. Is there any other significant jobs we did in Brunswick?
I feel like a hypocrite because I just realized I think you guys were like level 4 or 5 when you took on the zombie beholder.
It's the same thing.
Yeah, I almost got disintegrated by that.
Yeah, me too.
By that
You
zombie
didn't
beholder.
die.
It doesn't feel good, does it?
No, it does not.
Yeah, there's a few other bits and pieces. They do a few side quests. They meet Ubanians for the first time, I think.
Oh yeah.
A Ubanian spy party who
Yeah.
have been scoping out the area, right?
Yeah, and we almost get killed by them too, because
In
they
fact,
were
you
like,
lose the battle.
yeah. So they were like attacking someone or something like that, and we rushed in to help, and they beat the shit out of us. But bit of a plot armor here. We survived. They're like, hey, you know, we're not gonna kill you, but if you're not supposed to tell anyone that we're here because they're undercover. And we're like, hey, well, we're trying to get into Ubania. We'd appreciate it if you put in a word for us. And he's like, okay, well, here's a pass. Here's like a Ubanian passport that'll let you in. I'm like, sweet, we got Ubanian passports, which I think we still have actually.
Yep, you just still have them in your
We
pocket.
we still have
quick, question about Ubanian lore, I guess. So
Yes.
you mentioned that they're pretty much all human, and they just
Yes.
enslave everyone and hate people that aren't human.
Absolutely.
What are what's their interaction with snow elves? Is snow
don't get me
elves
wrong.
just a part of?
They absolutely hated Tokal. They hated everybody in the party pretty much.
Yeah.
But there is sufficient reason for them to at least keep their cover down for these guys.
Yeah.
And the bargain was that they'd give them a passport or whatever into Ubania, and that. Well, these guys, I think the spies were much less indoctrinated into the whole human master race thing.
Right.
So they were more receptive to these guys in general.
Well, my question is more towards because Snow is, from what I gathered, was ex, like Ubanian Special Forces or something like that.
No, that's Ryan.
That's right. Oh, okay.
Snow is a snow elf.
Yeah.
But Ryan was a human from Ubania.
Ah, I see. Okay. Yeah.
But he's no longer the part of the party.
Yep.
But I think Ryan was like a diplomat or something for the Snow Elves. So even though that the Ubanians hate everyone, they do see the value in working with other nations in order, at least to meet their own goals.
Yeah.
So they're not that close-minded, but secretly they want to kill everyone that isn't human. So
Yeah.
we get a passport to Ubania, which we never use. Spoiler alert. Lots of spoiler alerts here. Because we never end up heading to Ubania. We go to... and then after that, I think that was like one of the last jobs that we did before we're like, okay, these missing children, let's check it out. Let's check it out. And we head to this village. And the guy, like, I remember like one of the very first interactions, the village elder is like, hey, are you adventurers? Hey, what took you so long? Hey, what the fuck? And we're like, what do you mean? All the children are gone now. They're all gone because you took your sweet ass time. And we're like, oh shit. Well, the village was so far. I don't care. You killed all these children. They're all gone now. They're all gone. And this is where we had the all day session.
So the 12-hour session.
The 12-hour session. I think it was like 10 hours, but it was pretty long. And we basically like stayed in that village and we scoped out the town. Like we all split up and like tried to look for clues. Like, why did these children go missing? Snow spoke to the guards, and guards like, I didn't see anyone, or like some of the guards were just fucking around. Like they weren't paying attention, right? And these kids were going missing right under their noses. And Eisen is looking around. He like finds this homeless guy who like plays with this little girl, and Eisen's like, oh, that's a bit suspicious, right? Like, what if this guy's like a predator? What if this is the guy? Like, what if this is the guy, right? And she starts stalking this homeless guy who lives on the edge of town in this tent. And Tokul is what's Tokul doing? Tokul is
Getting
like looking
huge.
looking for stuff along the river, and there's this old woman there washing clothes, and he starts talking to the old woman, and the old woman starts getting the hots for him. And I was like, hey, wait a second. This is not how it's supposed to go. And she's like, hey, give me a kiss. And Tokul, i.e. Matt, was like, really didn't want to kiss this old lady. Like, he punched this old lady. Didn't he like punch the old lady?
Yeah.
He punched this old lady, and she was like, oh, shit. But I think eventually he finds a lead into these caves. But like ultimately we're there for like a week. We haven't found anything. And all of a sudden Eisen goes to check on the old homeless guy. And he's dead. He's dead in his tent. There's his guts are everywhere inside his tent. And we're like, oh shit. That was our only suspect. Like, who is it now? And then Snow decides, okay, I'm gonna check out the river. You guys keep looking at your own thing, right? And he follows the river all the way up to this hole in the side of the nearby mountain, and he goes in there, and there are the skulls of all the children that went missing. He found where the children were, and there's like a pool of blood there. Meanwhile, Tokul and Snow investigate like another part of town, right? But that's weird. How can Snow be in the cabin and working with Tokul at the same time? And eventually, fake Snow leads Tokul to the mouth of the cabin where the real Snow is at. And the real Snow comes out and he's like, hey, wait a second. And you have the Spider-Man moment where they're pointing at each other like, hey, wait a second. And then the Oni comes out, like the fake Snow transforms into this big Oni. And we're like, holy shit. And we run back to town. Oni chases us. We tell Eisen, and we fight this Oni. It was a pretty tough fight, because he kept going into like gaseous form, and so we couldn't hit him, and moving around all over the place. So we were like climbing on top of buildings, shooting arrows at him, jumping down at him from rooftops and stuff like that. But eventually we kill him after this grueling fight. But it's a bittersweet victory. We killed the Oni, but we didn't save the children at all. And I should wind it back a little bit. In that cabin, there's this big pool of blood, and Snow's sword has a demon inside of it, and he thirsts for the blood, right? And it starts talking to him throughout the start of the campaign, right? Doesn't talk to him anymore, but it starts talking to him. It's like, I need blood. I need the freshest blood, right? Fresh like veal, like a child. And so Storm lets the sword drink like all the blood in the cavern, and it just drains the entire cavern until it's just bone and dirt. And I think at that point it transforms, right? Because the sword has gone through a lot of iterations as we
Yes, it has.
worked on it, right? But he's like, I want more blood from a live child. All right, I want to drink the freshest blood. And so I was like, no, I don't want to do that anymore. I'm not that edgy anymore. So we eventually leave the village downtrodden, because we failed before we even got to the village. And we're like, okay, well, next time if we see something like that, we should act straight away. We go back to Brunswick.
Can I make a quick aside real quick? I believe you actually do strike the bargain with the demon sword, right? Whereas, like, if you give me a live child, I will give you the location of the Oni or its whereabouts, and that's how you manage to track it down and finally kill it. For that time.
Yeah, I remember that.
So you sacrificed a live child.
Well, I gave him the promise. I gave him my word that I would.
Okay.
And that was enough for the sword.
Do you do it later?
We're getting to it.
Oh, fuck.
We go back to Brunswick. I think at this point, the Baroness there, I forget her name, but she was the Baroness. She was very nice.
Something. Yeah.
She was very nice, and she was like, "Hey, look, I acknowledge that you guys have been helping out the town, you know, doing all this stuff that no one else can do. I'll treat you to dinner." And we just have a dinner, you know, a normal dinner. Nothing happens. We don't get attacked or anything. We just have a dinner, and that's nice. But later that night, Toko was feeling really bad about what happened back in the village. So he gets drunk. He goes into his room. He just gets so pissed, right? He gets drunk. And it starts raining and storming. He walks outside just to like yell for no reason, just out of anguish. And when he yells, like the thunder like zaps right down in front of him. And he hears a booming voice from Vanskir, the lightning god. And he's like, "Hey, stop yelling so loud, I can hear you." That's not what he says, but Vanskir starts talking to him. I don't know what he says. I can't remember exactly what he says. But he's like, "Hey, I give my blessing to you. Here, have these javelin that are imbued with my lightning power." What are the javelin called? They're called
Javelin of lightning. I don't know.
No, they have a name. It was like H or something like.
H.
Toko would always yell it when he threw them.
Oh, God.
It was like M or something like Mag Spear or something like that. Toko, get in the comments. Well, what is it? What was the javelins called?
Let us know.
They had a special name which he would yell every time, and these javelins were pretty strong because they could penetrate through targets, and they would zap them as well, doing a lot of lightning damage. So they were pretty strong. And meanwhile, Snow, he's feeling pretty bad about it too. He goes into the apothecary, and he's like, "Hey, do you have anything that would knock out an elf?" Because elf don't sleep; they go into a trance, right? So he like wants something to like just basically knock him out for a little bit, numb the pain. And he's like, "I have something similar to that. I don't think it'll do exactly what you need it to do, but it's pretty strong. This will take out anyone. Like, you go to sleep forever. But you being an elf, you might be knocked out for a little while." And I think at this point, I'm missing a lot of details, but when we entered Brunswick, Snow was really into carving, statues for all the kids there. And there was a local girl there named Anna, I think I carved a small sculpture of a goblin. And he goes to the beach, and Anna like follows him there somehow. And the sword's like, "Yes, this is the one."
Oh shit! Is this the beach episode?
This is the beach episode.
Oh fuck! All right, here we go.
It's like the storm clouds are parting. You know, there's moonlight lighting this beach, and the waves are swelling softly. And Snow's like, "Hey girl, come here. I got another statue for you." It sounds really predatory, because it is.
The little girl, she broke her last wooden sculpture. Right?
Oh yeah, she broke it. That's right. That makes it less creepy. And she's like, "Oh yeah, I'll give you another one. But first you need to drink this, right?" And Snow gives her that vial, right, that he bought from the apothecary. And he gives her a little bit, and she's out like a light. And Snow drapes a cloth over her face, and he takes out the sword, and he slowly impales it into her neck, and the sword drinks her blood.
Oh, this is cursed.
This is cursed.
And it's at this point where like the character of Snow is really kind of starting to come out at this point, and he's like, "Oh shit, I'm a monster. Like what? Why am I doing all of this stuff? Like this sword is like this sword is giving me power, but at what cost? At what cost?" So he drinks all of the potion, and he gets knocked out after he buries Anna, and he's basically knocked out until the next morning. Eisen comes in. She sees Snow kind of knocked out, and she basically, like, she has this thing where she draws power from magical items, because apparently that's going to help her power up her robot sisters back where she's from. But other than that, she doesn't really do anything. And then the next morning, everyone's looking for Snow, and Snow comes up, and Tokel's like, "Hey, where you been?" And I'm like, "Oh, I've just been out and about, whatever." Doesn't ever tell Tokel what happened. Or anyone. I don't think... Has he told anyone about the beach? What happened at the beach?
I don't think anybody knows.
Nobody knows, right?
About the beach episode.
Yeah.
That's fucked up.
Yeah, it's fucked. And then we decide to move on, finally, from that town. Where do we go to next? The next stop is Trident, isn't it?
That is correct. I believe you guys leave behind Lucius. No, wait, no, you actually...
No, we take him with us to Trident.
Never mind, yeah. You leave all the villages behind that you take along with you in Brunswick. And you decide, alright, it's time to go all the way to the city of Trident. Because... reasons why.
And this is around session 10?
This is
this is approaching session 20 now.
Also,
session 20.
type this.
How many sessions were
there?
How many sessions are there? Like, a total?
AK?
I got a little while. We can keep going.
Okay. Because this is session 15 out of 60.
60. Oh, Lord.
64 now.
Yes.
So
possibly need to speed it up a little bit. Maybe just like overall recap.
Let's touch it up a little bit.
Okay, it gets a lot quicker from here, I think. Anyway,
cool.
Because we're getting to like more recent times. But we get to the Trident. We start looking for jobs there because it's on the way to Ubania. So that's just the next stop, right? We don't intend to stay in Trident for long. We get to Trident. We start looking for jobs. We join the Adventurers Guild. We make our name for ourselves. We start calling ourselves Super Battleground, which we eventually drop for Blood Brothers. We head to this expedition to this nearby tomb, and we all go in there. And at this point, we do go through a couple dungeons. This is about session 20, 21. We meet Storm there, who just happens to be inside one of the dungeons for some reason, like deep in the dungeons, right?
Yeah.
We meet Storm there, and we have some fuckery where we try to, like, Storm tries to impersonate being a higher ranked official of the Adventurers Guild so he could take over the expedition or something like that. That doesn't go well. But anyway, I think we're like, what, diamond rank now? We're platinum rank adventurers?
There's some ranking system, yeah, platinum or something.
Yeah, out of like, what, diamond, whatever. So we're pretty high, but not that that's relevant at all. Eventually, we finish what we need to do there. We kill like some weirdo there, like a necromancer weirdo there.
It's the puppet guy, yeah.
The puppet dude, who was controlling some stuff outside near the town. And then we head back to the town.
That's when we introduce Ryan. Ryan shows up at that point.
Yeah, we did have a year hiatus because Albert was in his last year of uni. So we were like, okay, we'll just stop playing. We didn't play for like almost a year. And unfortunately for Lewis, he played like 2 sessions and we went on like a year hiatus. So that was unfortunate. But coming back from the hiatus, we come back from Trident. And this is where we meet Ryan, who says he was helping out the local snow elf faction there. We find out that there's like a refuge of snow elves there, and he was there as like a Ubanian diplomat, right? Oh, well, he was there, but eventually he decided to leave the Empire altogether, the Ubanian Empire altogether. So he joins us. We get a new party member. We get Ryan, who's Aiden's old character. Then eventually what do? We talk to some official. We talk to like the Baron or something because we need to get something from the castle. What was that big job it was like another heist in Trident, but I forget what it was.
Another heist in Trident.
Like we had to like infiltrate another party at the Baron's party to get something.
That's right. Yeah. Is that after or before Weedwater? That's before Weedwater.
Before.
That's right.
Before.
Yeah. So I think at that point they need to organize a heist because they need to get a MacGuffin. What the fuck did you need from that guy?
I have no idea. I completely forget.
Oh yeah, I'm forgetting too. They needed something from the Baron.
We needed something, and we decided to talk to a guy called the Hound, who turns out is one of Snow's old friends, like back from the Crescent Isles, right?
200 years ago.
200 years ago.
Sorry, how
And
old
this
is
is where
Snow?
he's about 400 something.
Oh, wow.
Snow doesn't really know either, because basically this is where he learns that he was basically comatose for like 200 years before he woke up again, right? After, events in his backstory. So he's dealing with that. He finds the Hound, who for the last 200 years has been here in Trident, like housing Snow Elf refugees who have been running from the Crescent Isles because apparently there has been like a plague or something that's been killing everyone there. That was also in the note from the Snow Elf priest that was sacrificing all those people in Black Hole thing. So he was doing that. The priest was doing that in order to help the homeland, the Crescent Isles, for something else. Anyway, so he's like, hey, get this thing that we forget now. Get this thing from the party. You're going to have to infiltrate your way in. So we do that. We infiltrate our way in. We eventually get the thing. And we meet this guy called Hesteldane, who's like the head steward. He's like head of the servants, right? And he's organizing everything. And we're pretending to be servants, but we're fucking it up a lot, and we're getting on his nerves. Anyway, the dinner, basically the dinner comes to a climax where everyone's outside in the courtyard, and Hesselslane's like, all right. He summons 2 huge demons, and they start tearing shit up, and we're like, holy shit, what the fuck is happening? Like, we didn't see this coming at all. Eventually, he kills everyone, and I think there were like some other enemies there that we killed off as well. And we talked to Hesteldane, and we're like, hey, like, are you a bad guy? And he's like, oh, well, what do you think? We're like, well, we don't know. You just kind of summoned 2 demons to kill everyone. And he's like, hey, would you guys like some power in exchange for a mark, a brand? And we're like, well, we don't really have a choice, so I guess so. So he gives us a level up for these brands that get sewn on our shoulder. They get seared into our shoulders, right? These glowing brands.
I believe the brands you already had, like previously, just from completing the dungeon. He just had
control
to manipulate them.
We got it from the dungeon.
That previous brand that I also have now is from that dungeon that you met Storm in.
It's from a different dungeon now, but
it's connected.
The same thing. It's connected.
Okay.
It's connected. So, and I think that was Albert's way of like introducing a new, like, unified goal for the party to follow, which I think so far has worked out pretty well. And we're like, okay, well, sweet. We got the brand, and he's like, oh yeah, I need you to do something for me. I need you to go out to this village nearby called Weirdwater, and I need you to get this magical rose, right? And I need you to bring it back for me. We don't know why. He never tells us. So we head to Weirdwater, which is in the Virescent Woodland.
Yes.
And we meet a young girl there, who nobody seems to like for some reason. She's like the nicest girl, but she gives us the weirdest, like, creepy vibe. Like, someone's like too nice, And she's being looked after by this gnome who can transform into a bear. So I think he was a werebear, but we never actually get confirmation of that. Like, maybe I believe he was a druid. Okay, he wild shapes himself into a bear.
Yeah.
And Snow and Ryan decide to buy a business there. It crashes. They don't make any money from it. And we have this girl tell us where this rose is. We find out that she is actually a dryad, which is like a tree spirit, right? And she's a part of this larger community of dryads. And every so often they have to sacrifice a chosen, they have to choose a sacrifice to feed to this green dragon. Otherwise the dragon's going to eat them all. Oh. And she was the next sacrifice. And I think also at this point we get introduced to Oasis, who is another character that the player no longer plays with us anymore. and she basically talks to the dryad, and eventually I think we decide that like, hey, we don't want to be a part of this like human sacrifice ritual, so we're just gonna dip. We just dip. We just run away from weird water.
Do you get the rose?
No, we just dip.
Okay.
And we're like, fuck Hestane, fuck all this shit, fuck all these dryads. We dip, we go. And then we get back to Trident, and we decide like, okay, we start learning more about the brands. There's a temple there. Snow talks to one of the high priests there, and he says that, like, if you want to rid yourselves of these brands, so you're no longer under the influence of Hestane, you're gonna need this special weapon. Whether it's a sword or a hammer or whatever isn't said. It's the Oathbreaker. You need this weapon. And last I heard, it was in the desert, up in the north. So like, okay, we all gear up to go to the north, which is past the Coroquine. So we gear up and we start heading. We start embarking on our journey. Our like roughly 4 to 5 month journey to the north. We enlist the help of Passage, who is like a guide that travels to and from the desert and Denethor. We travel to the Coroquine, which is like this big canyon. We do some trials there. We learn of some ancient civilization there. Some interesting puzzles, you know, like the ghosts of the old civilization were still there. We meet some hags on a peak. I think it was that peak there, Odd Mountain. And they were like eating kids, like they were raising kids to eat or something like that. Very Hansel and Gretel.
I realize there's a lot of kids like just dying
yeah.
in this campaign. Jesus Christ.
Kids and death and sacrifice and eating.
This is
Hey, that's not.
Sorry,
I don't run the campaign, so
I don't run the campaign either. I don't know how that happened.
At what session is it at the
this
point
is
where you
this
get
is
told?
getting to like 30s. We're like session 30ish.
It's like a late 30s.
So there's been
yeah.
like 30 odd sessions at your quest to get this Oathbreaker.
Oh, since
say,
we
yeah.
started, like since we knew about it,
Yeah.
yeah, there's been 30 or 40 sessions.
Wow. Okay.
No, maybe 35.
So that's been your main goal for the past like 35
Yeah.
sessions.
Yeah, and getting to the desert was like what, 10 sessions? It was a long time, right?
Yeah, it was like a 5 month, 6 month journey. Which
Yeah,
is like 10
which we
sessions.
like we played out for the most part. Anyway, at this point, like Toko and Stowe, we weren't gonna stand up for like people sacrificing kids. Like, we're not about that life anymore, right? And this is like after the hiatus, right? I mentioned this a number of times, but like I was like, I don't want to play Snow as this edgy guy anymore. Like, I still want him to have a bit of edge, but I want him to like be like more of an actual character instead of this edgelord. So like, having learnt from his past experience with like kids and stuff like that, he's learnt that he's not going to stand for child sacrifice, and he doesn't really like children in general because of what they entail, right? Like the implication, right? He just doesn't do well with kids on principle. Eventually, these hags have been like controlling this village, and basically we like meet up with a bunch of kids who are getting raised by these hags, and they basically get eaten by these hags. They get raised to be eaten, right? We kill the hags. Long story short, we kill the hags. We save the town, and we move on, right? Would you say that's basically what happens?
Yeah, it was a nice little mini arc where happy ending. Nobody died. It was great.
And the kids get raised in the town, but unfortunately, the girl that we met initially got eaten, so we were too late for that part. So even more trauma. Hey, who doesn't like a bit more trauma? So eventually, we get to the edge of the desert, and we meet another. We meet. Oh, I'm missing a big part. But we met a slaver back in Trident, a Ubanian slaver who Tokal beat the fuck out of. Oh, well, Storm, Oasis, and Tokal, they beat the fuck out of him, and we stole a slave from him, a green dragonborn named Hevroth. And at this point, we meet a family of people who I think were just traveling along the road, and they were these humans who lived on the coast of the desert. I forget what the name was, But they live on the coast of the desert, and they were heading to the city of Huria, the moving city of Huria, which is a city on top of this giant tortoise.
Right.
Huge tortoise, right? And it only comes around every so often because the tortoise moves. So they were like, hey, we're on the way to drop some money off to pay for some tuition fees for one of my sons. And she has her other son there who hopes to go to the College of Huria as well. And her son is there to learn magic. So Storm, being the philanthropist that he is, he's like, hey, I'll do it for you. I'll run the money up for you. But can you take our friend here, who was an ex-slave? And so she's like, oh, okay, well, we do run a farm back home, so he can help us back there. So she heads off back home with Hevroth, and we end up like, we're like, hey, we'll pay for all of the tuition fees. You don't need to, pay for it anymore, right? 'Cause we're loaded, and we love to throw money at our problems, just like Amazon does.
It works. Yep.
It doesn't always work.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
So we get to the Huria. It's not called Huria State. It's called Venture, right? The town called Venture.
Yeah, these are just placeholders, really.
Yeah, I think this was an early map.
Yeah.
So basically, we get to Venture. We get introduced to the post system, the postage system. You ever seen a fantasy world that has a postage system as good as ours? Well, let me tell you, this postage system, right? You can send mail from anywhere to whoever, and it will end up in their hands when they ask for it. So basically, you go to a post office. There's a fancy guy there, and he's like, "Who's this to?" You say who it is. He goes in the back, a flash of light, and it's gone.
Wow.
So when the recipient comes and he's like, "Hey, any mail for this name, so and so," and you need to say the name that it's being addressed to, otherwise you won't get it, right? So if you say it, he's like, "Oh, there's a couple of mails." Go in the back, flash of light, there it is. You have your mail, right? It's that good.
If only Ozpost was that good.
Hell yeah. And I think Ubania has like, they don't like to be a part of the mainframe network of the post, so they have their own postage system, which is like the scuffed version of it. Anyway, getting off track, right? We go to the post's office. We start asking for letters. Everyone gets letters, I think. Oh shit, forgot. Right on the way, we find Maple on the way to Venture, who was trapped.
Oh yeah.
Underneath, he was trapped in the Corokin. He was being mind controlled by this Aboleth, which is like this Lovecraftian creature with psychic abilities. Oh. And he's been mind controlled for 200 years, so he's still acclimating. And he's also a snow elf, so there's some like connectedness there, right? So we get to Venture. Everyone gets their letters. I think Tokul gets a letter from Sugar, or he sends a letter to Sugar, right?
Correct, yeah.
He sends a letter to Sugar saying like, "Hey, I love you. Where you at?
What are you doing?"
Snow gets a really crusty letter that it's got to be like, over 50 years old, right? And basically, in it implied like that Snow wasn't actually comatose for the last 200 years. He was doing shit, but he didn't know it. He was like a sleeper agent. And Snow's goal is to find the prince, which he did meet back in Trident, but the prince turned out to be this. It didn't turn out to be who we thought it was. He was this guy that turned evil, supposedly. He like went to the dark side, very Anakin Skywalker to Darth Vader, right? Oh, yeah. And so Snow's like kind of fucked up over that because he doesn't know what to do anymore.
So is this a Ubanian prince?
Snow's not a Ubanian. He's a snow elf.
So no, as in like, where is the prince from? Is he from?
He's from. Oh, sorry, he's from the Crescent Isles.
All right, okay. Cool.
He's from the Crescent Isles, yep. And he's part of Snow's backstory because there was like a civil war back in the Crescent Isles, like a war of succession.
Yep.
And the prince was supposed to be the rightful heir, but there was a civil war, and a lot of the loyalists got cast out.
Right.
That's what happened. That's the rundown. Sorry, should have mentioned that to you. Sorry.
Yeah, I was like,
chaos episode. That's the chaos episode.
Yeah, I'm missing a lot of shit, but
okay. I'll ask you if I need to fill in some gaps.
Yeah. So he gets a letter. He's a sleeper. Snow's a sleeper agent. We still don't really know what the implications of that is. That's kind of where the thread is at the moment. Storm, I think, sends some letters back home. Ryan... Does Ryan get any letters, or he doesn't get any letters? He gets a letter from...
Ryan... I don't think Ryan really gets anything.
He doesn't get any letters. But he's on the run from the Ubanian Empire because, hey, you don't ever leave the Ubanian Empire, okay, and live to tell the tale. And I think Maple tries to send a letter to his sister, who he's trying to find, who also got lost during the Civil War back home. And that's Maple's whole quest. And eventually, the town of Huria, the city of Huria, makes its way to Venture. And it's this huge turtle, big spectacle. And this turtle is like semi-submerged in the sand, and it shakes the ground as it arrives. We hire an airship. We get ourselves up into Huria, and we're in Huria for a long, long while. We do a lot of stuff in Huria. To speed it up, we find out that there are 13 primes that run the whole city, and they determine where the city goes every year.
So they can control this big turtle?
Yeah. Well, they can control where it goes.
Alright.
Yeah. And that's the city there. And we go to the Drunken Drunkard, which is run by a air genasi named Tai, short for Typhoon. And turns out that she's a prime as well, which we find out later. She's the prime of the Robin Hood Thieves Guild. She steals from the rich and gives to the poor. And I think we end up doing a lot of odd jobs here and there. We come up with a plot to destabilize the entire Hurrian, political system, which falls through. And then Ty gives us a job that hey, if you want a big job, I'm planning to heist this casino in the gambling district. So there's a lot of preparation for that.
A lot of preparation.
Lots of heists, yeah. Albert loves heists, right? You're a big fan of heists, right?
I like heist movies. I don't know.
Did you like that
the
Rick and Morty heist episode?
Yes, you son of a bitch, I'm in.
You son of a bitch, I'm in.
Exactly.
But there's a lot of stuff that happens here. I'm trying to think of a way to say it all succinctly.
There's not a way. This goes for so damn long. You guys go to the college. There's a massive college. You guys go to the Coliseum. You guys fight in the Coliseum. You guys go to the woodwork. Kevin meets a new master to learn carpentry from. There's a whole time skip fucking area. A lot of shit goes
So you guys
down.
basically just spent a bunch of time here in this city.
Yeah, we spent over 20 we have spent over 20 sessions, and we're still in the area. We could still go back there after all this Cavern Dawnhell stuff is done, because that's where we came from.
Yeah. I see.
So yeah, a lot of stuff, but I think the central plot arc was to find the Oathbreaker, which kind of gets put on the wayside quite often, but we're still here to find the Oathbreaker. That's our focus, our main goal here, and all of this stuff was kind of in service to that.
Yeah, and eventually they do find clues as to where it is and how to get to it, right? Yeah,
well, we're skipping over a lot of stuff, but yes, we eventually we meet up with a pirate lord named Ravram, who is taking with him a gnome called Eliwick, who's with us right now, and she's like a dwarf weeb. She loves everything. Okay. I think we discussed this.
Yep.
We discussed this last episode, and she's going to help us with the finding the Oathbreaker. But between that, so we met her once, and then we kind of don't meet. We kind of what happens is we almost make a deal with Ravram, the pirate lord, but then Storm decides. Oh shit, I'm missing a major plot point. Okay, when we get to the town, right?
Okay.
Remember the tuition that we were supposed to pay for that kid? His name was... what's his name? Igmar. We were supposed to pay for this kid called Igmar, right? Who supposedly is going to the College of Huria. And we're supposed to give it to his uncle who was staying in the city. So we go to the Drunken Drunkard. We find his uncle there, like, off his face. He's drunk. And Storm goes up to him and is like, hey, here's the gold for the tuition. And he's like, oh, sweet, more drinking money. And we're like, hey, hang on. Wait a second. Wait, this is not going to the kid's tuition? And he's like, fuck no. Why would I give it to that snot-nosed kid? And like, wait, where's the kid now? Is he in the city? Yeah, he's somewhere. I don't care, right? And this really, like, pisses off Storm. He's like, hey, how can you just do this? How can you do this? To this kid. This 50-year-old kid, right? More kid motifs, right?
He's like 17. He's not a kid. He's like
Teenager.
like a teenager.
Young adult.
Yeah.
And Storm takes him out to the edge of the city and, like, kills this guy, right?
Oh, he just
kills
straight up,
this guy.
like, just
Yeah,
kills him.
he
Just
murders
murks
him,
him,
right?
man.
Wow.
And throws him off the edge of the Huria, edge of the turtle, right? And later on, like, as we're getting to know all the primes, we meet this crime boss called Creed, who's a red tiefling woman. And we find who's working for her, one of her shipwrights is Igma, this guy. He found work in this criminal organization, right? And she basically, we need her to, like, take us to some place, and Igmar's gonna drive us there. And afterwards, I think Storm, like, blurts out that, like, hey, I killed your uncle. By the way, I killed your shitty uncle. You know? Because thinking that, like, hey, this uncle's a piece of shit, he'd be glad he's dead, right? But Igmar's like, hey, why the fuck did you do that? That's not your guy to kill. And so Igmar's really pissed at the party. Really, really pissed at the party. And skipping a few bits, we get to the Pirate Lord Revram, and he also has a shipwright, Igmar's dad. And guess what? Storm's like, hey, by the way, I killed your shitty brother. And he's like, what? What? And he goes down, talks to Revram, and Revram's like, okay, deal's off. Deal's off. Okay, I'll look out for my own, and if one of my own says that you're no good, then it's no good. And we're like, fuck! So Storm fucked up quite a lot during the early part of this arc. And I think there were some, like, outside personal issues that Lewis was going through that made him act up like that. But yeah, so we had to pick up the pieces, right? And I think up to this point, there was this big event that was going to happen in 3 months. And this was nearing the end of last year, right? So we're like, okay, well, we'll probably need to take some time off for Christmas and stuff like that. People have exams and, you know, real life stuff that we got to attend to.
Yeah.
So like, okay, this event, which is connected to the Colosseum fight, we meet another Prime called Lady Saria. She's a total bitch, but that's all you really need to know. There's this event that's coming up, another fight that's coming in 3 months. So we're like, okay, let's take this downtime. So we take off 4 months in real life to, like, handle real life issues. And then we come back. The downtime, we spend 3 months in Huria. Storm has this revival arc, or he has this character revival arc where he's, like, kind of seeing, like, oh, well, actually, I need to be better because I can't be acting this way. Also, Storm used to have a demon mark. I'm missing that too. The demon mark was making him do all this shit. So
Chaos episode.
He's prepping himself. He's prepping himself to, like, get rid of the mark because he met another Prime called Ravram Solus, who's like a big cleric at the Temple of Vosni, who's the god of safe passage. This is a lot to put on you, but I'm trying to get through this quickly.
That's okay.
And he's like, okay, for these 3 months, there's a warehouse that burnt down. We got into a fight with some Ubanians at a warehouse and it burnt down. And Radalak is like, hey, Storm, you're going to take all this rubble, all by hand, by yourself, to the edge of the city and dump it. That's your quest, right? And Storm's like, okay, this is my redemption arc. I have to do this.
Yeah. Repentance.
Yeah. So for the next 3 months, he doesn't have a place to sleep. He has to find his own food, and he has to take all this rubble back. piece by piece. And there's a lot of rubble because it's a big warehouse. Big warehouse. And it's doing this by hand. He's getting buff. Snow is learning carpentry with his master, and they start having a bond there. Good, master-student relationship. Tokul goes and does odd jobs, goes hunting. I think Ryan does the same thing. He goes hunting, he does jobs, he's working for Creed.
So this is during the time skip?
This is during the time skip.
Right.
Downtime. Maple is... I think he's learning magic. Is he learning magic in a guild? Because he joined a guild?
Yeah, he joined a guild and was learning magic.
Learning magic there and doing odd jobs on the side. And... that's it, right? That's all the party members?
All 5? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because at this point we
lost Oasis.
Eisen left.
And Eisen, Oasis. Yeah. For outside reasons. So they're no longer a part of the party. So it's just the 5 of us for... up until you joined.
Okay.
So... time skip, and they were like, okay, great. After the time skip, we learned that Sivgis, who was a guy that arrived before the time skip, he has access to this dig site where Eliwick tells us that that's where the Oathbreaker is. They've tracked it down to this location. So we go to Baron Sivgis, and we go to his house. We do some puzzles there. We get into a fight. Ryan dies for the second time up until this point. Oh no, Tokul dies. Ryan has died twice already up until this point because we got into some harsh battles. Sivgis makes us drink tea that paralyzes us. He forces us into a contract where he's like, give us the Oathbreaker, and I'll give you all this shit. And that's when I became a Sivgis simp, because what happens is, we're supposed to do this big heist, right? It's just that the casino, called the Dragon's Hoard, is run by an actual blue dragon, adult dragon. And we got into a close call with him. And this guy's crazy. This dragon is crazy, right? He came to this dinner that we organized, and just we were just scared that he was going to transform and start killing everyone at the party. So this guy was not to be trusted. But it turns out that this dragon named Varvoth was a lackey of Sivgis. So he's like, you're not going to get attacked by Varvoth. And basically he revives Tokul as a part of the contract. And he allows us access to the mines where we can get the Oathbreaker. We need to give the Oathbreaker back. Well, we already have the first part. We got the first part already at this point.
Okay.
I forget how, but we have it.
Yeah, you got it from Ravram.
Yeah.
Pirate Lord.
Right.
Pirate Lord.
Yeah, he gave it to us, so we need to get the second half of it, bring it back to him, and that's it. He takes it back to Revnost or wherever he's going to, right? And that's our contract fulfilled, as long as we do that for him. And he's going to give us a bunch of free shit, and Varvas is not going to attack us. So when we get back to town, it turns out that Ty, the Thieves Guild leader, already did the heist, because they noticed that Varvoth left his hoard, and they just went in and took all his shit. And they got the special crystal that Storm needed to complete his demon severance ritual to get rid of his demon mark.
Right.
So this is getting pretty close to the present session now. So we all gear up to go and complete this ritual, this demon severance ritual. So the party plus Storm's brother, who we met in town, who is a part of this fanatic paladin cult called the
Order of the Cleansing Flame.
Order of the Cleansing Flame, the Candlemen, right? They have a big candle as the symbolism, and basically they scan you up and down, and if they see you as demonic or evil or anything, they zap you on the spot. They just kill you on the spot. These guys are crazy.
All right.
They're from Caesarea, a different continent. And Storm's brother joined up with them because apparently that was the only way to help their mother, who up until this point Storm thought was dead. But she actually is alive, supposedly. So we go and complete the demon severance. We go to this ancient Temple of Vosny, which has now been abandoned. We go inside, we find this brass-coated ship. which we later commandeer as the Acheron. We go into this tomb. We have a big fight. Basically, Storm is inside the inner sanctum, battling with his dark self, his like demon self, right? And basically his demon self is trying to convince him, like, hey, you should keep serving Yunogu, the demon gnoll entity, right?
No, I know of Yunogu.
Yeah. And meanwhile, we're outside, and all these gnolls, these demon gnolls, start like rushing in to like stop the ritual because they don't want the connection to be severed, right? And it also opens the portal like from the lower planes for demons to come through. So we're playing horde mode outside, killing all these gnolls, and inside, Storm is trying to overcome his mark, his thing. Eventually, he does, and at the end of the ritual, Radalak is like, he's exhausted because he has to keep this bridge open while like the connection is being severed. We defeat the gnolls outside. Radalak is exhausted, and his brother Thunder is in the room with him to like stand guard in case any make it through.
Yeah. Storm and Thunder.
But Thunder says, in the name of the incandescent order, I deem Radalak to die, and he kills Radalak.
Oh.
And we're like, what? Why did he kill Radalak? And he was apparently on an assignment to kill Radalak as an infidel. And Storm's like, hey, what the fuck? Why would you do that? And Thunder's like, I did it to protect our mother. And that's all we hear about that, because the paladins, his order starts coming in. And we're like, oh shit, we got to get out of here. So we hop on that abandoned ship, the brass-covered ship. Maple rolls a natural 20 and gets it running in no time. And we speed away. They try to chase us, but we like blow up one of their ships, and our ship is faster than theirs because we've got a cool ship. We've got a cooler ship than theirs. And we make it back to Huria. Rewinding back, Ryan has died a couple times at this point. And after the second time he dies, he in the quote-unquote afterlife, he meets with this forgotten entity called Crom, who's like a dragon god, like a silver dragon god, right? And the legend is that Christoph, the god emperor that all the Eubanians worship, is like the god that rode down on a silver dragon, right? But what everyone doesn't really know that is that the dragon is like either the true god or was also a god. Like, so there were two gods that descended down, right? But everyone focuses on Christoph because he's the epitome of man, right? Everyone focuses on the human aspect, but nobody thinks about the other stuff. So he meets Crom, this silver dragon who is taking the form of an old man, and he says that, hey, that brand you have, I'm your charge, right? I'm your supervisor, your god supervisor, because we're all supposed to have god supervisors, but all of us except Tokul and Ryan have even met our gods. Like, I don't even know if Tokul's god is Engvir. Is it Engvir?
You don't know.
Yeah, we don't know, right?
No.
So that happened after he died. Ryan died for the second time. So when we get back to the town, Ryan's like, well, look, that's it. This is it for me. This is my last stop. And there is this big muscular woman with white hair. Oh, sorry, not white hair, just blonde hair. And she's a part of this order called the Sisters of Steel, secretly known as the Sisters of Crom, right? And these are like these dissenters who like don't think Christoph is like the true god, something like that. So very blasphemous, but they're like a Eubanian faction that get explored during some of the one shots. And she's like, okay, Ryan, it's time to go. And Ryan says his goodbyes. We all chat on him one-on-one, and we all have our heartfelt goodbyes. And they get on the Silver Wyvern and they fly off, and that is the last we see of Ryan. But it's not long, because we hear an explosion from inside the city, and we rush towards the Temple of Vosny, and we see a black Aarakocra fighting all these paladins who are like trying to burn down the temple with all these innocent people in there. We defeat the paladins pretty quickly. We meet Ravana, the new party member, Aiden's new character, who is a acolyte of the Temple of Vosni, and he's just there to take over after Radalok is gone, and he's there to find the successor for the temple in the next town.
So is this why I see some of his like, I guess, abilities as flavored with electricity?
I don't think so. I think that's just because he's a Tempest cleric. I don't think Vosni
like
has anything to do with electricity.
Vosni's thematic is more just like a boat on calm waters. It's not really storms or thunder or anything of the sort.
Okay.
But yeah, I guess he flavors it that way because he's a Tempest cleric.
Right. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, and that the whole stick with Tempest cleric is like electricity and storms and stuff like that. Like just in the D&D lore.
Mm-hmm. Right. And from this point, you guys group together, and then they go meet Ravram Solcian, and that's where they get the first part of their the Oathbreaker, and that's where they take Eliwick, and then they go to the dig site. They meet a Sphinx, right?
Yep.
They go down, and they meet the dwarf. They see the Nightwalker, and then they finally bump into you.
Hey!
after like 60 sessions, we finally made it to the present.
There we are.
God damn.
Damn.
Yeah.
Seems like you guys have been in a very long, mostly traumatic journey.
We skipped a lot towards the end, to be honest. There was
Yeah,
a lot.
there's a lot more in the Huri arc that we skipped over.
I think
but it's not that important.
Okay. Well, I think if we do end up going back to Huria, I'll probably need like a more in-depth catch-up, but obviously don't have time for it in this pod. But
basically once we like get the Oathbreaker and we do or don't fulfill our contract with Sivgis, we're leaving Huria. Basically, we're not going to stay in Huria for that long.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for the
who
big
knows
catch-up.
what'll happen. Hey, no worries. I'm sorry it took so long. I didn't realize.
Okay.
I knew it was going to take long. I didn't think it was going to take this long.
I told you it was going to take like 2 hours.
It's been it's been a little more than 2 hours.
Well, we spent an hour on the normal recap.
The first part.
That is true.
It was accurate as 2 hours.
Yeah.
All right. We should probably call it there.
Yes, I gotta make some cuts. I gotta make 1 cut, 2 cuts, and then I gotta cut in this.
You got some work to do on that editing
stuff. So we're upping our editing game. You see the trend here? It's going up. Anyway, any closing words?
I do have a couple questions, but I might save them for after, like, we actually do the cut. I can ask you guys off camera. But other than that, thank you for the catch up.
It's content.
Yeah, it's really dope.
If you have time for them, we can just leave them in. Otherwise, if you've got to go, then we can stop it here.
See, I've got like Macca's sitting downstairs, so.
Look, he's got to go. No, that's important. Yeah. That is important.
But it's cool.
Right, thank you very much, AK, for joining us, though.
Yeah, no worries. Pleasure to be here. It's a really cool podcast. I really like the aspects where we are, or maybe not like critical, but where we try and improve on our game. I think that's really important. And from what I've heard of the history of and the themes of how this has been DM'd by Albert, there's been a lot of improvement in terms of like unity, player agency, and obviously less children dying, I suppose. But I've definitely seen that there's a lot of improvement, and that seems to be a trend. So I'm excited to continue playing this campaign, and hope I can also help improve.
Yeah,
and we are excited to have you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, this has been episode 27, Far Kingdoms. We'll see you all next time.
Bye.
See ya.